You practice immortality. I cultivate the land. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Editing. After taking the 3 red-bearded carp fry, Xuan returned to the courtyard. Arriving at the edge of the spiritual spring, the red-bearded carp in the bag looked a little listless after being bumped all the way, and the thin red whiskers on both sides of the fish head drooped weakly. I'll give you luxurious new residence. Xuan poured the 3 red-bearded carp into the spiritual spring and said with a slightly sour tone, if the spiritual spring area was larger and the spring water was deeper, he would have wanted to soak in it. The red-bearded carp fell into the spiritual spring and was a little uncomfortable at first, but under the stimulation of the spring water containing weak spiritual energy, it quickly regained its vitality. Swimming back and forth in the spring water, the 2 thin red whiskers floated in the water very comfortably. Xuan had some expectations, and his mind was focused on the body of one of the red-bearded carp. Red-bearded carp fry, a non-grade spiritual beast, is quite satisfied with the new environment. It would be even better if some more spiritual rice fell into the spiritual spring. Or thought flashed through Xuan's mind. Good. Xuan couldn't hold back his excitement and raised his fist vigorously. Since he could see the immediate state of the red-bearded carp, it would be very likely that a white ball of light would appear when it matures. Xuan looked at the 3 red-bearded carp swimming freely in the spiritual spring, as if he saw that they were nurturing rich treasures for him. It seems that I can raise more spiritual birds and beasts in the spiritual field or spiritual spring. He made a decision secretly. Recalling the immediate state of the red-bearded carp in his mind, he couldn't help laughing. The 3 little guys are still thinking that spiritual rice will fall from the sky. If it really falls, it will fall into my mouth first. Let's drink some spiritual spring water without spiritual stones first. He left the spiritual spring and inspected everything in the spiritual field. In the spiritual field, where the blood jade ginseng was located, Xuan's spiritual consciousness sensed that the positions of the 20 blood jade ginseng seeds had shifted, and several pairs of them were close to each other. Xuan quickly used the earth guiding technique to return them to their original positions through the spiritual soil, maintaining a relatively safe distance. 100 firefly grasses have begun to sprout new shoots. The green and slender new shoots are sparsely distributed in the spiritual soil, conveying to Xuan a vigorous growth state. The spiritual field is divided into several areas. One of the spiritual fields with slightly richer spiritual power is planted with migrated spiritual plants. Among them, the 2nd grade sword grass occupies a large piece of spiritual soil alone. Occasionally, there will be a trace of sword intent shooting around its straight body like a sword, so it cannot tolerate other spiritual plants growing nearby. In the fine red needles of the 1st grade red cloud pine, several clusters of flowers are becoming more and more beautiful, and the flower buds are blooming, which is very beautiful. Another 2nd grade dark marrow ganoderma is still accompanied by rotten wood, and the dense dark red mycelium absorbs the rotten spiritual power inside it. In the corner of the spiritual field, the grass puppet leaned against the wall, silently familiarizing himself with the new environment. The big hole in its chest still exists, which is very eye-catching. Xuan came to it and took out a spiritual stone with a little reluctance. Normally, when raising a grass puppet, you only need to provide a broken spirit, and it can maintain its functions and protect the spiritual field. But if you want it to stimulate its own recovery ability, a broken spirit is far from enough. He stuffed a spirit stone into the grey grass tumor on the grass puppet's head. Then, a weak spiritual power fluctuation came from the huge tumor formed by the grey dead grass. Then, 2 grey-black dead grasses floated out from the head, one on the left and one on the right, like willow catkins in the wind, slowly floating to the big hole in the chest. Starting from the edge of the hole, 2 grey grasses slowly woven in a cross shape, filling the big hole in the chest bit by bit. Xuan couldn't stand its slow weaving movement, so he ran to other parts of the spiritual field and performed a round of spiritual rain technique and released the earth inducing technique and Jengjin sword technique according to the needs of the spiritual plants. After nearly an hour, when he looked at the grass puppet again, it had finally come to the end of the project of filling the big hole in its chest. 2 gray-black dry grasses filled the last gap and slowly tied a knot, and the remaining small pieces of dry grass fell to the ground. Xuan could clearly feel that the huge head of the grass puppet had shrunk a circle. It's good that it has recovered. I still need you to help me guard the spiritual field. Although the spiritual field is now protected by a first-grade protective formation, Xuan has become accustomed to the grass puppet standing in the corner and is willing to pay a spiritual stone to heal it. You know, when he bought this second-hand grass puppet, he spent less than 3 spiritual stones. After inspecting the spiritual field, Xuan opened the formation and came to the casual cultivator market. Taking advantage of this opportunity to move to a new home, he planned to invite Xuan, Xuan, and Higuan Xiaobei Tang to visit his home, to thank them for their care and concern for him before. Therefore, he came to the market to buy some spiritual rice and spiritual beast meat to make a hearty meal. There is a special spiritual rice shop in the market, which sells several kinds of spiritual rice. The lowest price is 30 broken spirits per catty. The most expensive one is a kind of spiritual rice called blood tooth rice, which has full grains and a strong fragrance. It costs 4 spiritual stones per catty. It is said that the more expensive ones are specially supplied to the core members of the big families in the market. Even if ordinary casual cultivators have a lot of spiritual stones, they have no way to buy them. Xuan considered it again and again, and finally bought 10 catties of spiritual rice with 30 broken spirits per catty, and another 2 catties of spiritual rice with 50 broken spirits per catty, spending a total of 4 spiritual stones. After buying the spiritual rice, he went to the stall selling spiritual beast meat, and bought 2 catties of porcupine meat and 3 catties of barbarian beef. He also bought more than a catty of green spiritual leaves in one place. The color of green spiritual leaves is like jade. They can be eaten after a little frying. They are crisp and delicious, and can add a trace of spiritual energy to the body of low-level key training cultivators. Finally, he bought some food that did not contain spiritual energy, but was extremely delicious. Xuan then returned home with a lot of bags. Bought so many ingredients, spent about 10 spirit stones. For Xuan, who always saves money, it is considered a huge investment. After returning home, he began to process the ingredients and prepare dinner. Near the evening, Xuan was ready and estimated that Manager He and others would be here soon. Soon, Manager He's energetic voice came from outside the yard. "Lu kid, open the door quickly, I'm here to eat." Xuan opened the door and saw a thin old man holding a pot of wine. This Huang wine is a 10-year spirit brew. The taste is mellow and long. It can nourish the body. Let's have a few cups later. Manager He raised the wine pot in his hand. "You kid, you rented such a big yard without saying anything. No wonder you opened your mouth like a lion and swallowed so many spirit firefly grass seeds and blood jade ginseng seeds." He looked at the wide spirit field and sighed. "Old He, find a place to sit down first. I'll go to prepare dinner," Xuan said, and then went into the kitchen. Before they started cooking, Zhang Xuan's loud voice was heard again. "Uncle Lu, my mother and I are here." Xuan went out to greet him, and the silly Zhang Xuan jumped in and hugged his thigh. "Congratulations to Uncle Lu on your new home. I will hug your thigh from now on." Behind him, Xuan was holding a bamboo basket filled with spiritual fruits, smiling. Chapter 27 Worm Fishing. Because Xuan was busy preparing dinner, he and Xuan only chatted for a few words before entering the kitchen. At the edge of the spiritual spring, Zhang Xuan poked his head out and stared at the red-bearded carp swimming leisurely in the spring. Occasionally, he stretched out his little hand, hesitantly wanting to grab the 2 slender red whiskers, but in the end, he was not brave enough and quickly retracted it. "This is a red-bearded carp. It is not aggressive. Its red whiskers are beautiful, right?" Manager He came to him at some point and introduced the origin of the red-bearded carp to him. "Beautiful. I didn't expect Uncle Lu to raise 3 such beautiful spiritual fish. It's amazing," the child exclaimed sincerely. Xuan behind him nodded secretly. Unlike her son Zhang Xuan, who only cared about whether the red-bearded carp looked good, she saw and thought about more. With such a large spiritual field and a spiritual spring, the spiritual stones required behind it were a little hard for her to imagine. She didn't have much contact with looping, and her impression of Lu Xuan came from her husband Zhang Hang's occasional talk. From Zhang Hang, she learned that Lu Xuan had ordinary qualifications, a silent personality, and was not good at dealing with people, but he had a good heart, practiced hard, and worked hard to cultivate spiritual plants. He was an ordinary spiritual plant master who was a good person. Now, first he helped his family clean up pests, and then he took Zhang Ziyuan to earn spiritual stones, and there was the fight that night that he didn't know the situation, plus the financial resources to rent such a courtyard. All these things made her a little confused for a while. Lu Boy has changed a lot during this period of time. I didn't expect that the boy who was so silent, stubborn, and stingy like a miser has grown to this point without knowing it. The thin old man on the side was also full of emotion, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. It's time to eat. Not far away, Lu Xuan's voice sounded. Braised porcupine meat, stir-fried beef, hand-torn green spiritual leaves. Dishes with good color, fragrance, and taste were served on the table. Wow. It smells so good, Zhang Ziyuan said in an exaggerated tone, making Lu Xuan inevitably lost in admiration. Manager He and Xuan were much more reserved, but their actions of glancing at each other from time to time showed that they were attracted by the dishes in front of them. Lu Xuan served each of the 3 people a bowl of steaming spiritual rice, and poured each of them a bowl of orange spiritual wine. Thank you Manager He, Sister Zhang, and Ziyuan for coming to celebrate my move to a new home. Come on, cheers. Manager He and Xuan gave their blessings, and they drank it all in one gulp. When the spiritual wine entered the throat, it felt spicy at first, and then a mellow warmth came from wherever it passed, warming the limbs and bones. Gudang. After putting down the wine bowl, a sound came from Zhang Ziyuan's abdomen, which made Lu Xuan and the other 2 laugh. Let's eat, everyone, don't be polite. Whether it was the spiritual beast meat or the spiritual rice, they were worth their price, delicious, and contained a hint of spiritual energy. The 4 of them ate with relish, and finished all the food on the table. After a rest, Xuan and her son and Manager He said goodbye one after another. Manager He lived not far from here, and his strength was much stronger than Xuan and the others, so he went home alone. Xuan and Zhang Ziyuan lived at the edge of the northern district, where there were all kinds of people, and since they were weak, Lu Xuan escorted them back. It was late at night when they returned home. The night fell, and the moon and stars were sparse. Lu Xuan took off the talisman and the silver blade from his sleeves, looked at the night sky, and had more expectations for his future. The next day, Lu Xuan got up at dawn. After practicing in bed for a week, he washed up and came to the spiritual field in the light mist. In the spiritual spring, 3 red carps swam in the pool in the shape of a Chinese character. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on it. Or thought came to his mind. Drinking water yesterday, drinking water today, drinking water every day. How can you grow up? You are not satisfied with the spiritual spring water. Lu Xuan said something and ran back to the inner room with a handful of spiritual rice in his hand. As if sensing the weak spiritual power from the spiritual rice, the 3 red carps swam faster and moved with Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan sprinkled a small portion of it, and the water surface suddenly surged, and 6 thin red whiskers appeared and disappeared like thin lines. After a few breaths, the water surface returned to calm, and the 3 red carps swam slowly, but their heads were always tilted towards Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the red carps. Please, give me some more rice. Or thought flashed through his mind, and then sprinkled a small portion of the spiritual rice. The surface of the spiritual spring was agitated again. Lu Xuan sprinkled all the spiritual rice into the spiritual spring, and the red carps ate it all. After eating and drinking, the red carps no longer moved around Lu Xuan, looking aloof and unlovable. Lu Xuan then went to check the many spiritual plants in the spiritual field. He adjusted the shifted blood jade ginseng spiritual seeds, and according to the needs of each spiritual firefly grass, he provided spiritual rain in a targeted and quantitative manner, to allow them to get the maximum amount of moisture. Afterwards, Lu Xuan used his spiritual awareness to the maximum, carefully searching every piece of spiritual soil. I found you. The earth drawing technique was activated, and the spiritual soil changed slightly, and a grey-white insect was squeezed out. He continued to search and found several more insects of different shapes and even dug out a colorful small alien insect from the spiritual soil. These insects lurk in the spiritual soil, and when they come out, the larvae will feed on the branches and leaves of the spiritual plants, affecting the normal growth of the spiritual plants. There are many sources of these insects. Some are insect eggs lurking in the spiritual soil, some are accidentally brought into the spiritual field, and some alien insects are secretive and have strong hiding abilities. They can pass through the protective formation and invade the spiritual field on their own. As a spiritual plant master, you must frequently check the spiritual soil of your spiritual field and take the initiative to clean up the trouble before the alien insects harm the spiritual plants in the spiritual field. Because the new spiritual field is relatively busy after moving in, he has not started large-scale insect search and pest control until today. After his spiritual consciousness plowed through the entire spiritual field, Xuan finally found 7 larvae. He brought the larvae to the edge of the spiritual spring, picked up a plump white worm, and threw it into the center of the spiritual spring. A thin red long whisker shot out like lightning, tightly wrapped around the white worm, and sent it into the fish's mouth. Wow, so fast. Xuan looked at the red-bearded carp that was still savoring the larvae, and found it interesting. The other 2 red-bearded carps that were farther away also swam over, and moved with Xuan's hand movements. Another larva fell. 6 thin red long whiskers popped out at the same time, competing for the ownership of the larva. Then, they almost simultaneously retracted to the head of the red-bearded carp. One of them was lucky, and wrapped the larva with its long whiskers, and sent it into its mouth. Xuan became playful, either throwing a larva high up, or making a fake move to lure the thin red long whiskers of the red-bearded carp. He waited until the last alien worm was eaten, and he was still a little unsatisfied. Haha, the long whiskers next to the red carp's head look like fishing lines. It seems that, while people are fishing, fish are also fishing for worms. It's quite interesting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 New Neighbors. Inside the house, Xuan sat cross-legged on the wooden bed, practicing his skills, and his spiritual power flowed through his body. After a cycle, he slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. Although his hard work for many days could not equal the cultivation reward brought by a spiritual firefly grass, Xuan still practiced diligently. It was just that his energy was mainly focused on taking care of and cultivating spiritual plants and beasts, and practicing skills and magic laws was secondary. It had been more than half a month since he moved to the new courtyard. During this period, he rarely went out and cultivated spiritual plants wholeheartedly. Everything in the spiritual field had changed a lot. The 3 red-bearded carp in the spiritual spring had grown about 2 inches, and the thin red long whiskers had grown more than half a foot. When shooting fishing worms out of the water, they could instantly stretch to more than half a foot. The branches and leaves of the 100 spiritual fireflies had grown a lot taller, and dots of fluorescence gradually began to appear on the emerald green and slender leaves. In the middle of the night, countless fluorescent lights flickered like tiny stars in the sky. A section of the blood jade ginseng emerged from the spiritual soil, like a jade stone that had just been excavated, crystal clear. After the spiritual ginseng grew out, their movement speed increased a lot. If you don't pay attention, they will either get together or onto the area where the spiritual firefly grass is, so Xuan has to keep an eye on it all the time. The red cloud pine quietly grew 5 small pine nuts, which were looming in the thin red pine leaves, revealing a sharp corner. The sword grass has grown to the size of a silver blade, and its demand for sword energy is even greater. Xuan has to release a Jingjin sword technique to it every hour. Occasionally, you can see tiny cracks in the spiritual soil beside you, which is the result of the sword intent escaping from the sword grass. As for the dark marrow mushroom, countless dark red hyphae have tightly wrapped the rotten spiritual wood, leaving almost no gaps. The rotten wood has been almost absorbed by the dark red hyphae. It seems that I have to find a few more, otherwise, the growth of the dark marrow mushroom will be affected. Xuan said to himself. It's just right. I'll take this opportunity to go out and visit the market to see if I can find any interesting spiritual beasts or unknown spiritual species. He walked out of the courtyard and squinted his eyes in discomfort under the strong light. Dao Ao Lu Xuan, you finally came out of the yard today. It's really rare to see you. A voice came from the opposite yard. Lu Xuan looked over and saw a middle-aged monk lying on a wooden chair. When he saw Lu Xuan coming out, he stood up and walked over. Hello, Dao Ao Wang. Lu Xuan greeted him. The middle-aged monk was named Wang Shan, who lived next door to Lu Xuan. After he moved in, he came to visit the yard once. Wang Shan had a 5th level of key training and was a small patrol leader in the market. In his spare time, he liked to relax in the brothels. Dao Ao Lu Xuan, it's not good to stay at home like this. Go out with your uncle Wang one day and I'll take you to see the world. Wang Shan teased Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan showed a hint of embarrassment at the right time and waved his hand to refuse. Thank you for your kindness, friend Wang. With my low level of key training, if I enter a brothel, I will be eaten alive. Not even my bones will be left. Not long after Lu Xuan moved in, he controlled the breath retaining method, and his cultivation showed that he was at the 3rd level of key training. After all, there are many mid-level key training cultivators living nearby. If he still remains at the 2nd level of key training, it will attract attention. Although the 3rd level of key training is still low, it at least looks more normal. As for the brothel, what he said was not wrong. The female cultivators in it all practiced various charm techniques and knew how to please customers, but it is very likely that their spiritual power and blood essence will be sucked away without knowing it. More importantly, it is okay to enter, just to listen to the music, but if you want to have a deep exchange, the spiritual stones you spend are not a small number. You are so boring. Isn't it for pleasure that we practice to gain greater power? Wang Shan smacked his lips and lost interest. Fellow Daoist, you have profound cultivation and can handle those demon women, which is naturally good. As for me, I don't like romance. I prefer to be with spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. Everyone has their own aspirations. That's right, I won't force you. When you change your mind one day, tell me and I'll take you to see it again. I'll pay for the spiritual stones. The two said goodbye, and Wang Shan staggered back to his own yard. Lu Xuan continued to move forward. When he passed a separate courtyard, a strong aroma of wine came from it. The owner of the courtyard, Lu Xuan, also met him. He was a 4th level key training cultivator who could not do without wine for 3 meals a day. He also trained himself to brew spiritual wine. After knowing Lu Xuan's identity as a spiritual plant master, he chased Lu Xuan and asked him if he had planted spiritual plants that could brew spiritual wine. He stopped only after Lu Xuan denied it. When Lu Xuan just moved into the courtyard, he attracted the curiosity and prying of some of the surrounding cultivators. After seeing Lu Xuan's low-level cultivation and knowing that he was just an ordinary spiritual plant master, these prying gradually disappeared. The casual cultivator market was not far from the new courtyard. In less than a moment, Lu Xuan arrived at the market. Inside the market, people came and went, and from time to time, the shouts of various stall owners could be heard. Don't miss it if you pass by. There are all kinds of top-grade magic tools. There is nothing you can't find, only what you can't think of. Fresh monster meat, just hunted in the wilderness, the blood is not dry yet. Buy a pound or two, it is worth half a month of cultivation. High-priced per case of second-hand magic tools, second-hand formations, and residual talismans. In addition, various strange treasures and unknown materials are purchased. Lu Xuan walked slowly in the market, shaking his head left and right, paying attention to the goods on the stalls. Most of the stalls were filled with the main cultivation resources of the cultivation world, such as magic tools, monster materials, spiritual medicines and herbs, talismans and elixirs, etc. Unknown spiritual species, spiritual beast eggs or young beasts like the ones Lu Xuan needed were extremely rare. When they were seen occasionally, they were only sold as a side dish. They were rarely sold exclusively at stalls. Suddenly, he stopped and came to a stall. The stall owner was a girl at the 2nd level of key training. She had an ordinary appearance and healthy oatmeal skin. Seeing Lu Xuan scanning the goods in her stall, she hurried over to greet him. Hello, fellow Taoist. I have all kinds of demon bird feathers and special demon bird eggs here. They contain rich spiritual power and taste great. Would you like some? Lu Xuan shook his head and pointed to a black cage in the corner of the stall. How do you sell the young demon birds here? In the cage, there were several colorful young birds with bright, dense feathers, only a pair of black and white bird claws showing. Oh, these are some brocade chickens? I found them in a bird's nest in the mountains. You can tame and raise them. They may lay magical eggs when they mature. If not, you can eat them directly. The meat is delicious. The girl introduced them to Lu Xuan. If you raise brocade chickens, how long will it take for them to reach maturity? 2.5 years. Chapter 29 Invitation. Lu Xuan didn't buy these young brocade chickens in the end. Although he felt an inexplicable fate, the 2.5 years of maturity period made him give up. The main purpose of raising spirit beasts was to obtain white light balls. 2.5 years was enough for him to cultivate a first grade or even second grade spirit beast to maturity. It was a bit of a waste to use this time to raise these chicks. He left the stall and continued to wander around. In the end, he finally got a big harvest. On a stall, he found an extremely rare first grade spirit seed, the pure snow lotus. Although the pure snow lotus is of the first grade, it is extremely rare, and the cultivation conditions are recognized as strict among spirit planters. The lotus seeds produced after maturity can keep the cultivators clear-minded for a certain period of time, and avoid being eroded by evil spirits. It is also the main material of the second grade elixir, the soul enhancing pill. The soul enhancing pill refined can slightly improve the spiritual consciousness of the key refining cultivators. Lu Xuan bargained and finally bought the white jade spirit seed for the price of 7 spirit stones. As the same grade, the price of the spirit seed is much more expensive than that of the red cloud pine and the blood jade ginseng, which shows the great value of the pure snow lotus. Back in the yard, he put the pure snow lotus spirit seed into the spiritual spring pool, circulated his spiritual power, and used the earth drawing technique that had reached the mastery level to incorporate the snow white spirit seed into the spiritual soil without changing the structure of the spiritual spring. After successfully planting, Lu Xuan focused his mind on the spirit seed in the shallow layer of the spiritual soil. A thought flashed through his mind. The cold ice rain hits the lotus randomly. The reason why the pure snow lotus is difficult to plant successfully is that in addition to requiring an environment similar to the spiritual spring, it also needs the spiritual rain with an icy breath to nourish it, so that it can grow smoothly. After performing the spiritual rain technique countless times, Lu Xuan has reached the realm of perfection. However, it is still difficult for him to contain an icy breath. He learned the basic ice technique when he first started practicing, but because of his average talent, he gradually gave up and mainly used it to practice the spiritual rain technique and fireball technique. Later, he obtained the earth attraction technique and the Zhengjin sword technique from the white light ball, but did not get the ice technique experience pack. He experimented many times, and finally barely released a spiritual rain technique with a hint of ice, pouring on the pure snow lotus spirit seed. After practicing for a few days, the success rate of releasing the technique increased a little, and the spiritual consciousness sensed that the snow white spirit seeds in the spiritual spring pool were quietly changing. On this day, when Lu Xuan was cultivating spiritual plants, a slightly familiar voice came from outside the courtyard. Dao Iao Lu, are you at home? Lu Xuan recalled it in his mind, and then he remembered the owner of the voice. After he reached an independent cooperation with Bei Ko Tang, he went there twice, once to sell the remaining spiritual firefly grass, and once to report the growth of spiritual plants to Bei Ko Tang regularly. Among them, he met several spiritual plant masters, and the owner of the voice was one of them, named Lei Fei, who was at the 3rd level of key training. Because he was not far away, he talked to him a few more words. Lu Xuan opened the courtyard door and went out. At a glance, he saw Lei Fei and a cultivator with a gloomy temperament behind him. Hello, fellow Daoist Lu, this is Leaking, my longtime friend. This is Daoist fellow Lu Xuan, who has a great talent for cultivating spiritual plants, and has reached a cooperative relationship with Bei Ko Tang at a young age. Lei Fei introduced the two to each other. Lu Xuan greeted them, and took them into the house. Daoist fellow Lu Xuan, I came here to find you for something. Leaking and I plan to invite you to enter the Nanli secret realm to find spiritual medicine. After the three of them exchanged a few pleasantries, Lei Fei went straight to the point and said to Lu Xuan, entering the secret realm, with the three of us at the third level of key training, isn't it very dangerous? Lu Xuan asked directly. Secret realms are either naturally formed or left over from ancient times. They usually have all kinds of treasures, spiritual medicines, exercises, magic tools, etc. But they are often accompanied by huge risks, mysterious and strange evil spirits, powerful and terrifying monsters, etc. Most spiritual plants and spiritual beasts need to grow in a pure or special spiritual environment, and they are rarely seen in the wild. And those secret realms left over from ancient times, every time they are opened, many rare treasures will appear, which makes many cultivators never tired of it, rushing into various secret realms like moths to a flame, in order to find a trace of opportunity. For example, the newly discovered secret realm this time attracted many forces of all sizes in Linyang market, as well as thousands of independent cultivators, just to seek a trace of illusory so-called opportunity. The big sects in the cultivation world usually occupy the cave paradise alone, and even derive small worlds. They don't have to fight for a little bit of cultivation resources like ordinary cultivators. Seeing that Lu Xuan was worried about safety, Lei Fei explained. The Nanli secret realm has been developed for hundreds of years, and the evil monsters in it have been almost cleared, and it is rare to encounter them. Moreover, we only plan to go to the periphery of the secret realm, and will not explore it in depth. Although it cannot guarantee absolute safety, it will basically be okay. Although the two of us are spiritual plant masters, we can't be content with mediocrity. We should strive for more. He persuaded Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan pondered for a moment, and continued to ask. Then this time, when we go to the secret realm, we will waste a lot of time on the road, and in the secret realm, right? Wouldn't that delay the cultivation of spiritual plants? There are flying boats on the road, and it only takes 1 or 2 days to go back and forth. It may take longer in the secret realm. After all, you may not be able to pick spiritual herbs. As for delaying the growth of spiritual plants, how much impact can such a short time have? Just continue to plant after returning. Lu Xuan remained silent, but he sneered in his heart. It won't have much impact on your spiritual plants, but it may not be the case for mine. After a few days away, although the spiritual plants seem to grow normally, it is estimated that it will be difficult to get spiritual plants of good or even superior quality. I'm also thinking about planting a spiritual plant of perfect quality, to see what kind of light bowl reward there will be. Lei Fei answered truthfully. I'm sorry fellow Daoist Lei, I've always focused on cultivating spiritual plants. I'm not good at fighting, and I don't have any magic tools or talismans. My current level of key training is also based on the accumulation of elixirs. So, for the sake of safety, I won't explore the Nanli secret realm with you two fellow Daoists. Lu Xuan declined. Okay, I respect your choice, fellow Daoist Lu. Lei Fei was frustrated and said angrily. The two did not stay for long, and left the courtyard, planning to invite other cultivators. Lu Xuan is too timid. With a level of key training, he is worried about danger in a secret realm that has been developed for hundreds of years. What's the delay for him to plant spiritual plants? He just planted some spiritual fireflies. What can delay him? As soon as he went out, Lei Fei couldn't help complaining. He originally thought that inviting a cultivator at the third level of key training would be a sure thing, but he didn't expect to be rejected by Lu Xuan, which made him angry. Okay, if you don't want to go, then don't go. We'll go and invite other people. Although this man is cautious, he is too cautious. With his style of doing things, it will be difficult for him to get opportunities. In this life, he can only be an ordinary spiritual plant master who is at the mercy of others. Leaking looked back at the courtyard where Lu Xuan lived, with a hint of contempt in his tone. Chapter 30, Cultivating Immortality begins with taking a concubine? After Lei Fei and Lei Fei left, Lu Xuan closed the gate. He had no emotion when they invited him to explore the secret realm. Going to the secret realm is nothing more than seeking a little bit of illusory opportunity, but as long as he cultivates the spiritual plants well, these will appear naturally. The better the quality of the cultivated spiritual plants, the higher the value of the treasures that appear. It is possible that a trip to the so-called Nanli secret realm is not as good as the light ball reward he gets from planting a spiritual plant. What's more, going to the wilderness, even if there is a planned route, even if the secret realm has been developed for hundreds of years, does not mean that it is safe. Monsters, evil spirits, killing people to rob treasures, and killing others, and most of these accidents can be avoided as long as you don't go out. Xuan stayed in the yard, with a posture of guarding the spiritual field as a whole, regardless of winter, summer, spring, and autumn. A few days later, the voice of Xuan, the neighbor next door, came from the gate. "Brother Lu, open the door. I have a wedding invitation for you." The courtyard door opened, and Xuan saw Xuan holding a fiery red wedding invitation in both hands, with a rosy face and a proud look. "Does Wang Daoyao have any good news?" Xuan asked curiously. "I recently took a concubine. I will invite some relatives, neighbors and friends to come over in a few days, to have a drink of wedding wine," Xuan said with a smile. "Okay, I will definitely come then." Xuan nodded in affirmation. Why, Wang Daoyao has changed his mind, and is willing to give up those old lovers in the brothel. Hey, I can still go, and have a chat with them, when I miss them in the future. Xuan didn't know what he was thinking, and a meaningful smile appeared on his face. One is a long-term staple food, and the other is a snack after dinner. There is no conflict. This concubine was bought from the black market, to take care of her personal daily life. It is impossible for her to restrict me, he said very confidently. Black market? Yes, I'm sure Brother Lu has heard of it. When I went there recently, I saw female cultivators being sold. Those female cultivators were the best in terms of appearance, figure, talent and cultivation. I spent less than 1,000 spirit stones to buy a female cultivator of the 3rd level of key training. If you are interested, you can go and take a look. It is said that these female cultivators have undergone special training and practiced the yin-yang technique of the Hehuan sect. When they are in love, their spiritual power can blend and nourish each other, and their cultivation can be improved faster than practicing on their own. Xuan strongly recommended it to Xuan. Haha, if I have the chance, I would like to see it. Xuan laughed and agreed casually. After Xuan left, he returned to the yard. He didn't care much about the female cultivators mentioned by Xuan, but he was indeed a little interested in the so-called black market. He had also heard about the black market in Linyang Market. It was located on the other side of the market, in a hidden location, and would only be opened at certain specific times. There were many cultivators who were not allowed to see the light, and the various treasures they brought that were also not allowed to see the light. Xuan had considered before that, if he wanted to find unknown spiritual seeds, the best place to go would be the black market, but due to his low cultivation, he lacked confidence, so this plan had been shelved. When 1 or 2 more batches of spiritual plants mature, I can go over and take a look. Among the newly planted spiritual plants, although the firefly grass was only of no rank, it was superior in quantity, and it had a better spiritual environment, as well as careful cultivation since sowing. Xuan believed that his strength would increase rapidly when it matured. In addition, the red cloud pine had entered the fruiting stage, and the sword grass was growing well. These 2 first and second grade spiritual plants made Xuan have greater expectations. 3 days later, Xuan went to the restaurant booked on Xuan's wedding invitation with the cultivator next door who loved spiritual wine. The cultivator's surname was Wu, and he loved to have a drink whenever he had nothing to do. Xuan had seen him several times during the time he moved here, and he was quite familiar with him. Because it was just a concubine, the normal marriage process was not followed. Xuan asked the monk surnamed Wu about the gift money, and turned his grief into appetite. He ate and drank lavishly at the banquet, vowing to eat back the spiritual stones he had given away. "Thank you all for coming to support us. I'll toast to you all." Halfway through the banquet, the monk surnamed Wu, wearing a bright red robe, showed a hint of excitement on his face. Xuan also got to see the concubine he married. Under the background of the phoenix crown and bridal robe, her skin was as white as cream, her face was pretty, and her figure was beautiful. Even with such a loose robe, you can see her curves. There was a black mole under the corner of her left eye, which added a bit of charm. This Wang Shan, after marrying a concubine, he is so happy that he doesn't want to leave. But looking at his appearance, he must have nourished a lot during this period, and his cultivation has improved a bit. After Wang Shan left, the monk surnamed Wu put down his wine glass and sighed. Lu Xuan heard a sour tone from his mouth. Wang Daoyao's concubine was bought on the black market. Why don't you go over and take a look? Buy one and bring it home. A tree of pear blossoms overshadows a crabapple tree. Lu Xuan teased from the side. He is the head of the patrol. There are many places that come to Lingxi. I'm not so generous as to spend hundreds or thousands of Lingxi. Wu Monk replied with a melancholy tone. After experiencing this episode, Lu Xuan returned to a peaceful and simple life. Every day, he looked at the red-bearded carp in the spiritual spring, grabbed a handful of spiritual rice or a few strange insects to feed them, and then used the unskilled ice magic to nourish the pure snow lotus. After a short period of time, he would burn the red cloud pine and electrocute the sword grass. Perhaps stimulated by Wang Shan's concubine, he had a stronger initiative to break up the blood jade ginseng that wanted to get together to ensure that they would not take the first step. The rest of his free time was used to practice the skills, practice the few magics he had mastered, and study the recipe of the Puan pill he had obtained before. Occasionally, he would go to the casual cultivators market to see if he could find one or two unknown spiritual seeds, or spiritual beast eggs or young beasts that caught his eye. One day, he just walked out of the courtyard gate and ran into Wang Shan's concubine, friend Lu. She was carrying large and small bags of spiritual medicine and spiritual beast meat in her hands, and she saluted slightly. "Hello, sister-in-law, are you just back from the market with a lot of shopping?" Lu Xuan asked casually. "Well, I bought some nourishing spiritual medicine and spiritual beast meat. My husband has worked hard in cultivation, so I'm going to nourish him." Wang's voice was soft, and she replied gently, with a light blush on her face, her eyes moving, and it seemed that the black mole at the corner of her eye was moving. As expected of a professionally trained person, you are full of charm in your every move. I think it's not for Brother Wang to nourish him, but for you, right? Lu Xuan secretly complained, his expression unchanged. Brother Wang is overworked, working day and night. It's time to nourish him. The two chatted casually for a few words, and Lu Xuan found a reason to leave. Wang walked past Lu Xuan with small steps, bringing a gust of fragrant wind into Lu Xuan's nose. Achoo. The fragrance was too strong, and Lu Xuan couldn't help but sneeze. Chapter 31, Cloud Links. In Beiqiaotang, Lu Xuan walked around the market and got nothing. He was not disappointed. He came to visit Manager He. "Lu boy, you're here?" The thin old man was looking at the account book. He glanced at Lu Xuan and ignored him. Lu Xuan found a place to sit casually and watched several 13 or 14-year-old medicine boys in Beiqiaotang busying around, coming in and out. The collected spiritual plants need to go through several processes, and the medicine boys do the most superficial processing. This does not require much technical content, so Beiqiaotang handles it openly in the hall without fear of being seen. "Come, have a cup of hot tea." Not long after, Manager He, who had temporarily finished his work, came to Lu Xuan and handed him a cup of tea with tender green spiritual tea floating in it. A sip of spiritual tea went into his throat, and the refreshing fragrance floated into his mouth and nose, making Lu Xuan linger for a long time. "How is it? Are the spiritual plants growing well? If they are not up to standard, then your profits will be greatly lost," the thin old man asked with concern. "Yes, the quality is better than the last batch," Lu Xuan replied with a smile. He knew that the spiritual plants in the spiritual field were not only related to his own income, but also represented the face of Manager He to a certain extent. After all, it was he who introduced himself to Beiqiaotang. Manager He was relieved to hear Lu Xuan's reply, and the two chatted casually. Suddenly, a woman rushed into Beiqiaotang with a child. The woman looked crying, and her eyes were swollen, which showed that she had been crying for a long time. The child had a trace of confusion on his face, opened his mouth, and let the woman hold him tightly. The woman asked a few questions and entered Beiqiaotang. Manager He was worried about something going on, so he followed in. After a while, he returned to the hall with a heavy face. A spiritual plant master who has established a cooperative relationship with the whole accidentally had an accident, and his family came to ask about the follow-up treatment of the spiritual plants. What happened? It is said that several people invited each other to a secret place to pick spiritual herbs, but they were unlucky and encountered an injured second-grade monster beast. 2 of the 4 people died on the spot, and the other 2 were also seriously injured and on the verge of death. What is the name of the spiritual plant master who has established a cooperative relationship with the hall? When Xuan heard what manager he said, he couldn't help but think of Lei Fei, who invited him to enter the secret place some time ago. His name is Lei Fei, one of the 2 people who died. How come you know him? Sure enough, Xuan got confirmation from manager He that it was Lei Fei, the spiritual plant master who invited him at that time. At that time, they tried to invite me to explore the secret place together. I was worried about the spiritual plants in the spiritual field and was afraid that they would encounter danger, so I didn't agree. Xuan sighed. Fortunately, you didn't agree, otherwise, you might be involved in the accident. Manager He couldn't help but say. It can only be said that they have encountered this disaster. They have entered the secret realm of countless cultivators, but they can actually encounter a second-grade demon beast. Then what should be done with the spiritual plants he took over? The spiritual plant master died, and his family is not very good at cultivating first-grade spiritual plants. According to the regulations, the hall should take over, transplant the spiritual plants, and give certain compensation to the family. But compared with mature spiritual plants, it is much cheaper. The family came here this time to ask for mercy and let the hall give the remaining spiritual plants to her for planting. Manager He did not say how to deal with it, but Xuan guessed about 70% by looking at his expression. Baekeo Tang must be profit oriented. In front of profit, a little bit of affection is dispensable. He was more determined not to put himself in danger. After all, if he went out and couldn't come back, wouldn't the spiritual plants in the courtyard be given to others for nothing? After this episode, he didn't think about tasting the spiritual tea. He got up and left after swallowing it. You want 40 spirit stones for such a small cloud walking lynx? Are you crazy? Wow, this is not an ordinary cloud walking lynx. Look at its eyes. This is a different species of lynx. The price must not be the same as usual. While strolling, the dispute on the stall not far away attracted Xuan's attention. Xuan's mind moved, and he came to the stall. His attention was attracted by an iron cage in the corner. The iron cage was made of unknown material. The slender railings had fine patterns and exuded a cold feeling. There were talismans on the 4 corners of the cage to prevent the things inside from escaping. Through the gap in the railings, Xuan saw a young lynx in the cage. The lynx's fur was black, but its 4 paws were like white snow. When it stood, it seemed to be stepping on 4 white clouds. The word cloud walking probably came from this. The 2 slender ears stood up high, with 2 small tufts of white hair on the tips of the ears, growing straight, like 2 antennas. A pair of emerald green eyes were extremely eye-catching, looking around coldly. Seeing Xuan's gaze, the scarred cloud-stepping lynx bared its teeth, leaned forward slightly, and made a posture ready to fight. Does having beautiful eyes mean that you are an alien species? Then does Dao-chan on my waist count as an alien cultivator? A key cultivating cultivator in front of the stall couldn't help but refute the stall owner. No wonder he was angry. If this young cloud-stepping lynx was sold at the usual price, he could easily get it for 20 spirit stones. But the stall owner, relying on the fact that the cloud-stepping lynx in front of him had heterochromatic eyes, asked for 40 spirit stones. 40 spirit stones, it can't be any lower. The stall owner was unshakable and insisted on the original price. Keep this so-called alien cloud-stepping lynx for yourself. It's so beautiful, look at it every day. The key cultivating cultivator left a sentence and walked away. You don't know what you're talking about. The stall owner sneered. My fellow Taoist, how did you get this cloud walking lynx, and what's with its pupils? Suddenly, a gentle voice sounded next to him. The stall owner looked in the direction of the voice and saw a handsome young man standing in front of the iron cage, looking at him with clear eyes. My companions and I went through a lot of trouble to get this from the depths of a secret realm. The cloud walking lynx is a first-class spiritual beast. It moves quickly and silently, and has good attack power. This young beast in front of us is different from ordinary cloud walking lynx. When it grows up, its pupils may have some magical powers. What do you think, fellow Taoist? How about 30 spirit stones? Lu Xuan habitually cut off a large piece. Haha. The stall owner crossed his arms in front of his chest, and was too lazy to pay attention to Lu Xuan. Fellow Taoist, you said it is an alien species of cloud treading lynx. I wonder what the basis is? Is it just based on its pair of emerald green eyes? You know, alien species of monsters are very rare, and it is even rarer to see an alien species among first-grade monsters. It is possible that this pair of emerald green eyes was just stimulated by something during the embryo formation process, or was affected by the special spiritual environment. It is too casual for fellow Taoist to directly classify it as an alien species. Besides, I see that the young cloud treading lynx in your cage is not in a very good condition. It is estimated that it suffered a lot of injuries during the capture process, and it has been trapped in the cage without good treatment and recuperation. In its current condition, it is still unknown whether it can be raised successfully. 36 spirit stones. It cannot be lower. You know, we paid a great price to catch it. 32 spirit stones. I'll take it directly. Lu Xuan knew that the stall owner had been convinced by his reasons, and he was particularly fond of this cloud treading lynx with green eyes, so he relaxed the price a little. Okay, then I'll give it to you at a bargain price. The stall owner gritted his teeth and finally agreed. He knew in his heart that the possibility of it being a different species was extremely low, and he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep it alive. Being able to earn more than half of what an ordinary cloud walking lynx cub could earn was already a pretty good result. Chapter 30 To the Body Says No, please read. Lu Xuan handed the stall owner 32 spirit stones and took the cloud stepping lynx cub with emerald green pupils from him. To prevent the cub from escaping, the stall owner also gave Lu Xuan a black rope and tied it around the neck of the cloud stepping lynx. Lu Xuan held one end of the rope in one hand and gently held the cloud stepping lynx in the other hand and left the market. Before going home, he went to the shop where he bought the red-bearded carp. The cloud stepping lynx cub was covered with wounds and had to be treated. This shop specializes in selling various spirit pets and also sells healing medicine for spirit animals. He bought a small bottle of ointment in the shop and took the cloud stepping lynx back to the yard. Be good, don't move, I'll untie the rope now. Lu Xuan comforted the cloud stepping lynx cub softly while untying the black rope. This is your home from now on. Remember to be honest and don't go out casually, otherwise you will be captured by those bad guys with bad intentions. Lu Xuan threatened the stepping cloud lynx. The young beast's pair of green eyes were wide open. It looked at Lu Xuan coldly, then turned its head to look around and observed the situation in the house. Seeing that the stepping cloud lynx was still honest, Lu Xuan was slightly relieved and focused his mind on its black fur. A thought flashed through his mind. The green-eyed stepping cloud lynx is a first-grade demon beast that feeds on demon bird eggs and demon beast meat. It has strange eyes and can see things that are difficult to detect normally, and can even see through illusions and see its true nature. It's really an alien demon beast. This pair of strange eyes looks a bit interesting, Lu Xuan said with a sigh. Demon beasts are restricted by their bloodline, and it is generally difficult for their strength to break through their own grade, but this does not include the occasionally seen alien demon beasts. They are more magical than ordinary demon beasts, and the possibility of breaking through the bloodline restriction is also much greater. I'm a lynx from the north, walking in the boundless wilderness, covered with wounds, but still enjoying solitude. This is the current state of the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx. Lu Xuan looked at the cloud-stepping lynx, which was covered with wounds, but still looked proud, and felt a little pity in his heart. Come, apply this ointment first. He pressed the head of the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx, gently clamped it with his calves, took out a small part of the ointment, and slowly applied it to the injured part of the cloud-stepping lynx. After a while, many patches of ointment appeared on the body of the cloud-stepping lynx, which was originally black, which reduced its appearance a lot. Okay, don't move around in the next few days, so as not to affect the formation of scars. After applying the ointment twice more, it will basically be healed. The green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx still stared at Xuan coldly. Come here and let me pet it. Xuan sensed the loneliness of the stepping cloud lynx from its immediate state, and he had the idea of petting this big cat. He waved at the green-eyed stepping cloud lynx, and the lynx wagged its short tail, unmoved. Hey, you're still not listening. Xuan reached out his hand, took it in, stroked its head a few times, and pulled the 2 tufts of grey hair on the lynx's pointed ears. A woo. When his mind was focused on the stepping cloud lynx, Xuan seemed to hear it roar with joy. He lowered his head and met its pair of emotionless green pupils, as if that idea was just Xuan's own illusion. Xuan couldn't help but chuckle softly, went to the kitchen, cut off a piece of air-dried porcupine meat, tore it into thin strips, and placed it in front of the green-eyed stepping cloud lynx. Let's eat some porcupine meat. I usually don't want to eat it myself. The green eyes of the stepping cloud lynx first glanced at the dried porcupine meat on the ground, as if stepping on 4 small white clouds, slowly walked to the porcupine meat, and stuffed it into its mouth elegantly. Is it delicious? Xuan asked in a low voice. The green-eyed stepping cloud lynx still ate the porcupine meat on the ground slowly, as if just to fill its stomach. Xuan noticed its slightly retracted paws, its round green eyes, and its ears standing up high. His mind was focused on it. Oh, who understands? I ate something called porcupine meat today, which really makes the lynx eat well. Ha ha ha. Xuan couldn't help laughing. He finally saw the young stepping cloud lynx in front of him clearly. On the surface, it looks aloof and cold, but in fact, it particularly needs warmth and care, but it hides all this deep in its heart. If he hadn't been able to grasp the real-time state of spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, it would probably be difficult to discover its characteristics. The body says no, but the heart is very honest. Xuan raised the corner of his mouth, and despite the resistance of the young cloud-stepping lynx, he forcibly touched its head. When the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx had almost finished eating, Xuan came to the spiritual field again, and scooped a bowl of spiritual spring water. The green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx sniffed the spiritual spring water with its little nose, stretched out its pink tongue, and gently licked the spring water. After eating and drinking enough, Xuan carried it to the spiritual field. These are the spiritual plants I planted. Each one is very important. Don't hurt them when you play in the yard, otherwise don't blame me for being rude. Also, the 3 red-bearded carps in the spiritual spring pool cannot be touched. If one day I find that one is missing, I will only hold you responsible. The green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx looked around the yard, its head motionless. Xuan knew that its true thoughts were not what they seemed, so he took it back to the house. After leaving the cloud-stepping lynx cub to rest in the house, Xuan went to the spiritual field alone, checked all the spiritual plants, and met their every little need. He took out a handful of spiritual rice and sprinkled it in the spiritual spring pool. After the red-bearded carp had eaten all of it, he returned home. It was already dusk. As soon as he entered the house, he saw the cloud-stepping lynx cub staring at him with a pair of emerald green pupils. After seeing Xuan's figure, it moved aside without a trace. Come here and sleep in my bed. After Xuan practiced for several weeks and washed up, he planned to go to bed to rest. He looked at the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx curled up not far away, and felt a loneliness and coldness in its heart. He patted the side of the wooden bed, and signaled it to jump up. The cloud-stepping lynx cub closed its eyes and was unmoved. Xuan had to let it go. He blew out the candlelight, lay down and closed his eyes to rest. After a while, Xuan opened his eyes, and saw the cloud-stepping lynx's pair of green eyes staring at him. This guy seems to be a nocturnal monster. Isn't it more excited as the night goes on? Xuan muttered, got up from the bed, picked up the uninjured part of the cub, and put it directly on the empty space on the side of the wooden bed, ignoring its struggling body. Be honest and rest quickly, he said and closed his eyes. After a while, Xuan's breathing gradually became long and strong. The green-eyed cloud-walking lynx felt the warmth coming from beside it, looked at Xuan's profile with its green eyes, swung its short and thick tail, and gently closed its eyes. Chapter 33 Perfect Quality, Seeking Follow-Up Reading. It was not yet dawn. Xuan was half asleep and half awake, when he suddenly heard a rough howl. He was startled, and lost all sleepiness. He opened his eyes and saw the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx not far away staring at him coldly. Did you make that howl just now? This is too much contrast, isn't it? Lu Xuan looked at the cloud-stepping lynx cub squatting quietly on the bed. It was difficult to connect the elegant and majestic figure in front of him with the rough howl just now. Let me hear it again. Lu Xuan tried to ask. The cloud-stepping lynx ignored him and jumped lightly, landing on the ground calmly, as if stepping on 4 white clouds. Lu Xuan had no choice but to get up. When he was about to wash up, he heard another seemingly ambiguous cry from behind him. Ah. It was obviously a clip sound, but because of the talent, Lu Xuan seemed to see a big and strong man trying his best to act cute. It barks very nicely. Don't bark again next time, Lu Xuan said casually. After washing up, he fed a few more dried porcupine meat. After buying the young cloud-stepping lynx yesterday, he established a simple master-servant contract with it. This contract can ensure that the two have a close connection and can achieve a certain degree of mutual understanding. If the spirit pet wants to harm the cultivator can find out at the first time. The contract conditions are relatively simple and the restrictions are relatively few. It is said that there are more complicated blood contracts in the beast controlling sect. After it is established, the cultivator can decide the life and death of the spirit pet in a moment. If the cultivator dies unexpectedly, the spirit pet will follow. After breakfast, Lu Xuan came to the spiritual field and inspected every area in the spiritual field. In the spiritual spring pool, the pure snow lotus has grown several tender and white lotus leaves, growing proudly in the mist. Isolated from the world, Lu Xuan watered it with a round of spiritual rain with cold spiritual power, making the several small lotus leaves look even colder. A few more blood jade ginsengs were not very honest and wanted to take advantage of Lu Xuan's rest at night to hang out together. Lu Xuan even saw 2 jade-like spiritual ginsengs approaching the blood jade ginseng in the middle from 2 directions. If I hadn't discovered it in time, wouldn't the 3 of you have played multiple ginseng sports? Lu Xuan sneered mercilessly and used the earth guiding technique to correct the 2 blood jade ginsengs that had deviated from their positions. In the red needle-like pine leaves of the red cloud pine, the volume of the 5 pine nuts has increased a bit, and there is a sense that they can't be covered up and are about to burst out. In the area where the spiritual firefly grass is planted, 100 spiritual firefly grasses have entered the final stage of maturity, and each one is about 1 foot tall. Lu Xuan estimates that several of them will bring light ball rewards in the next few days. After patrolling the spiritual field, he brought a few excavated strange insects and came to the edge of the spiritual spring again. In the spiritual spring pool, 3 red-bearded carps swam around the pure snow lotus, as if they felt that the spiritual environment around the lotus leaves was slightly different. This scene, in a sense, can also be summarized by those 4 lines of poetry. Fish play on lotus leaves in the east, fish play on lotus leaves in the west, fish play on lotus leaves in the south, fish play on lotus leaves in the north. It's just that the ancient poem describes the lotus leaves as dense and the fish constantly emerging, while in the Lincoln Pond, the red-bearded carp surrounds the pure snow lotus, directly covering its 4 directions. Lu Xuan thought secretly in his heart, and threw a fat and delicious alien insect into the spiritual spring. As early as when Lu Xuan came over, the 3 red-bearded carp knew that there would be delicious food falling, and each dragged a pair of thin and long red whiskers, and swam below Lu Xuan. As soon as the alien insect was thrown out, 6 long whiskers shot out in no particular order, attacking the falling alien insect. Suddenly, a black and white claw stretched out from the edge of the spiritual spring, and grabbed the 6 thin red whiskers. The red-bearded carp's body jumped out of the shallow spring water under the pull of the claws. Before Lu Xuan could scold him, the young cloud-stepping lynx quickly released its black and white claws, and the 3 red-bearded carp involuntarily fell back into the spiritual spring pond. At this moment, the red-bearded carp, which had been using its thin red long whiskers to catch worms, instantly became much more obedient, and no longer dared to pop out its thin red long whiskers to get close to Lu Xuan. It would only go to fight for the worms after they fell to the surface of the water. Lu Xuan glared at the young cloud-stepping lynx nestling at the edge of the spiritual spring pond, sensing that it was its instinct to catch the fish, and that it was following Lu Xuan's instructions to put it down instantly. The cloud-stepping lynx ignored Lu Xuan, but instead walked silently around the edge of the spiritual spring pond, waiting for an opportunity to strike. However, the red-bearded carp had just suffered a great loss and did not dare to shoot out its red whiskers again. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. The wounds on the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx had all healed, and 4 spiritual fireflies in the spiritual field had matured. Perhaps it was because the spiritual energy in the spiritual field was purer and richer, and because Lu Xuan had been cultivating it carefully since the spiritual seed stage. The 4 mature spiritual fireflies gave Lu Xuan an unexpected surprise. 2 of them were of high quality, and 2 were of perfect quality. After the 4 spiritual fireflies were picked, 4 slightly flickering white light balls were left in their original places. Lu Xuan picked up the light balls one by one. Harvest 1 spiritual firefly grass. Gain 9 months of cultivation. Harvest 1 spiritual firefly grass. Gain 1 year of cultivation. 2 thoughts flashed through Lu Xuan's mind. The spiritual power in his body kept rising and rising, raging wildly in his meridians. Lu Xuan operated the skills to control the flow of spiritual power in his body. When it gradually calmed down, he couldn't help but smile. During this period, although his energy was mainly focused on cultivating spiritual plants, he still worked hard to cultivate in his spare time, but the spiritual energy in his body could almost be said to be shrinking and motionless. He was not in a hurry. After all, his talent was there, and this cultivation speed was normal. More importantly, with the light ball reward from the firefly grass as a guarantee, it is not so important whether the spiritual power is improved or not. Look, 2 firefly grasses are almost equivalent to his 2 years of hard work. I have planted 3 batches of firefly grasses. It can be seen that the quality of the mature ones has a great influence on the light ball reward. Remember that the ordinary quality brings 3 months of cultivation, the good quality brings 6 months, the superior quality brings 9 months, and the perfect quality brings 1 year. He thought to himself, and continued to pick up the 3rd white light ball. Harvest 1 firefly grass, and obtain the wood life technique. Or thought flashed through his mind. The wood life technique is a wood-based technique that can condense wood-based spiritual power and accelerate the growth of spiritual plants to a certain extent. Finally, a new technique has been revealed. Following the earth attraction technique and the Zhengjin sword technique, the 3rd technique appeared in the light ball brought by the firefly grass. This wood life technique is similar to the earth attraction technique. Both are non-grade techniques. They are not as powerful as the Zhengjin sword technique, but they are more suitable for Lu Xuan. The effect of just learning to ripen is better than nothing. After absorbing a few more wood growth experience packs, I should be able to shorten the growth time of many spiritual plants. Lu Xuan thought secretly. The last white light ball was also brought by the perfect quality spirit firefly grass. The light ball disappeared, and a talisman appeared in Lu Xuan's hand. The material of the talisman is different from that of ordinary talismans. It seems to be made of gold and iron, and it is engraved with dense and fine sword marks. Sword key 10,000 talismans, a 2nd grade talisman. When used, it is equivalent to a full strength attack of a high level key training cultivator, and the attack is extremely strong. 2nd grade talisman. Lu Xuan was pleasantly surprised. Both the 1st and 2nd grades are in the category of key training. Most of the 1st grade talismans are equivalent to a full strength attack of a low level key training cultivator. Among them, the good ones can rise to the middle level key training cultivation, while most of the 2nd grade talismans are equivalent to a single attack of a high level key training cultivator. For Lu Xuan now, it can be regarded as a killer. Chapter 34 Dye this thing green. Lu Xuan put the 2nd grade sword energy talisman into the storage bag and returned to the house with satisfaction. The young cloud-stepping lynx stared at the grinning Lu Xuan with its green eyes, moved its ears, and lay on the ground. Lu Xuan could roughly guess what the young lynx was thinking without concentrating his mind. He walked up to it and rubbed its hairy head. Ouch. Another sound of squeezing out. Unfortunately, the innate conditions were there, and no matter how hard it squeezed, it still revealed a bit of roughness. Lu Xuan couldn't help laughing, cut a piece of dried porcupine meat from the kitchen, tore it into small strips, and placed it in front of the young lynx. The rewards from the perfect quality firefly grass are quite good. It seems that I have made the right decision to stick to the path of fine cultivation. I just don't know if spiritual plants with grades such as red cloud pine and swordgrass can be cultivated to perfect quality. If they can, the rewards will be even more considerable. The possibility should be lower than that of firefly grass. After all, the conditions for growing them are more complicated, and it is difficult to achieve perfection. Do your best. In the next few days, Xuan stayed at home, cultivating spiritual plants, and raising red-bearded carp, and blue-eyed cloud-stepping lynx. The lynx cub still maintained a cold and arrogant appearance in front of Xuan, but the state of mind that was occasionally detected by Xuan revealed its true thoughts. After 4 firefly grass matured, as if a chain reaction was triggered, a few days later, another 5 firefly grass matured. The quality of this batch was slightly inferior to the first batch. Among the 5 plants, 1 was of good quality, 3 were of superior quality, and only 1 was of perfect quality. Harvest 1 Lingying grass, and gain 9 months of cultivation. Xuan picked up the white light ball that emerged from the ground, and suddenly, 2 thoughts flashed through his mind. A strong spiritual power suddenly emerged from his body, and rushed through his body. He closed his eyes, and practiced the skills, trying to control the spiritual power that suddenly rose in his body. After the spiritual power subsided, Xuan opened his eyes. His eyes were bright and full of spirit. After another year and a half of cultivation, he now felt that the spiritual power in his body had reached the limit of the 4th level of key training. Next, as long as he practiced hard and a few Lingying grass matured, he would be able to successfully break through to the 5th level of key training. Harvest 1 Lingying grass, and gain a 1st grade exorcism talisman. A talisman that imprisoned evil spirits appeared in Xuan's hand. Xuan put it into the storage bag, and began a new round of talisman accumulation. Harvest 1 Lingying grass, and obtain the magic of wood growth. The white light ball sank into his mind, and a thought emerged. Xuan had eaten an experience pack of wood growth. Then, the principles of wood growth, the process of casting, and the control of spiritual power flashed by like a flash. Xuan's understanding and control of this magic were more thorough. Wood growth from entry to mastery. Xuan came in front of the red cloud pine, and circulated his spiritual power. A spiritual power with a faint green color floated into the slender pine leaves of the red cloud pine. In an instant, he felt that there was a trace of wood spiritual power condensing around the red cloud pine, with vigorous vitality, and integrated into the spiritual plant. His mind was focused on the red cloud pine. Although it seemed that there was no change on the surface, the immediate state showed that this weak wood spiritual power had a certain promoting effect on the red cloud pine. Xuan tested the wood growth that he had just eaten, and then focused his attention on the last white light ball. This white light ball was brought by the only perfect quality Lingying grass, so Xuan had more expectations for it. Harvest 1 Lingying grass, and get 1 drop of grass spiritual liquid. Or thought flashed through Xuan's mind. Then, a drop of emerald green liquid appeared in Xuan's hand. The liquid was in the shape of a raindrop, half the size of Xuan's thumb, half solidified, emerald green, and exuded a strong breath of vitality. Grass spiritual liquid is condensed and refined by a large amount of grass essence. It contains rich grass spiritual energy. It can be used to feed monsters that consume grass spiritual energy, and can also be used to refine related elixirs, and integrate into magic tools, formations, puppets and other related treasures. Grass spiritual liquid. It sounds good, but how to use it? Xuan held the trembling drop of spiritual liquid in his hand, which could break at any time, and fell into deep thought. I got it. Isn't there a ready-made grass puppet? It is made of special dry grass, and is a treasure of the grass system. Xuan turned his head, and looked at the grass puppet guarding the corner. This grass puppet was a second-hand item he bought from the casual cultivators market. It was rumored to be from the Qianji sect, which was famous for its puppets, and had a very simple behavior pattern. When outsiders or monsters invaded the spiritual field, they would warn Xuan, and try to restrain, and tie up the other party. When Kinming, a cultivator at the middle level of key training, attacked him, the grass puppet also blocked a fatal spear attack for Xuan. It can be said that it had made great contributions. Usually I feed you broken spirits, but today I'll feed you something different. Lu Xuan walked up to the grass puppet, bent down, and stuffed the grass spirit essence into the huge dead grass tumor on its head. The originally grey huge grass tumor turned green at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Hey, I dyed this thing green for you." Lu Xuan laughed softly, and when he saw that the grass puppet did not move, he continued to inspect the spiritual plants in the spiritual field. Half a day later, he came to the corner of the stone wall in the yard again, and found that the green on the grass puppet's head had faded a lot. After absorbing the drop of grass spirit essence, the grass puppet also underwent significant changes. Originally, it had been quietly guarding in the corner of the spiritual field. If no foreign objects invaded the spiritual field, it would stay there motionless. First, it had no active movement ability, and second, it had no intelligence, and could only complete a few simple commands. After digesting the grass spirit essence, Lu Xuan noticed that he had developed a trace of low intelligence, and he turned his head left and right to observe the surrounding situation. When Lu Xuan gave the order to patrol the spiritual field, the grass puppet seemed to understand and moved slowly on the ground at a very slow speed. At the same time, the dry grey grass on its body also had more changes, becoming more tough, and could instantly shoot out many grass ropes, or it could wrap and condense a thicker and longer rope. The only thing that remained unchanged was that its reaction speed was still slow. It took a long time after Lu Xuan's order for it to act according to the order. Now that the area of the spiritual field is larger, your task is more difficult. If you have nothing to do in the future, remember to patrol the spiritual field. Lu Xuan said to the grass puppet earnestly. The straw puppet was unmoved, and the face made of grey grass on its large and somewhat deformed head stared blankly at Lu Xuan. When Lu Xuan disappeared in front of it, two faint green lights seemed to flash in the grey grass, and then the straw puppet stepped out on its two thin hay legs, and with a huge green tumor on its grey grass head, it slowly walked in the spiritual field. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, A Familiar Plot. The next day, Lu Xuan inspected the spiritual field, used various low-level magic to cultivate spiritual plants, and then looked at the straw puppet that was still moving slowly in the spiritual field. You didn't walk in the spiritual field all night, did you? Stop, stop. The straw puppet still slowly stretched out its thin hair legs. It waited until Lu Xuan returned to the house, before it reacted and stopped in place, with its hair head facing the spiritual field. I'm going out for a while, do you want to come with me? After Lu Xuan entered the house, he said to the green-eyed cloud stepping lynx lying on the ground. Ah. The lynx cub tightened its throat, called softly, and walked to the door of the house with indifferent eyes. When Lu Xuan saw it like this, he knew that it was habitually aloof, but in fact, it was eager to accompany him. Sure enough, when he reached out to grab the lynx's fur, the cub symbolically struggled twice, and then lay obediently on Lu Xuan's shoulder. Four white clouds clasped Lu Xuan's clothes, a pair of pointed ears stood up, and two tufts of grey hair on the ears fluttered in the wind. There was not much spirit beast meat and spirit rice left at home, so Lu Xuan planned to go to the market to buy some. After raising 3 red-bearded cubs and the green-eyed cloud stepping lynx on his shoulder, the consumption of spirit beast meat and spirit rice increased a lot. While Lu Xuan satisfied them, he could only look forward to getting better light balls in return after they matured. As for the 9 mature spirit fireflies, he did not plan to sell them to Baekeo Tang for the time being. He put them in a white jade box in a storage bag and dealt with them together when there were more. After arriving at the market, Lu Xuan scanned the stalls as usual to see if he could get the unknown spirit seeds, spirit beast eggs, and cubs that he wanted most at the moment. Unfortunately, he was unlucky and did not come across them. He calmed down and went to the store to buy 20 kilograms of the lowest grade spirit rice and 5 kilograms of monster meat, spending a total of more than 10 spirit stones. After that, he still had about 80 spiritual stones left in his hand. After putting the spiritual rice and monster meat into the storage bag, Lu Xuan was about to leave when suddenly, a huge monster bird flew over from high in the sky with its wings flapping. The monster bird's wings were about 30 feet wide, leaving a large shadow on the ground. This is the Wang family's third-grade monster beast, the iron feather eagle. It has been raised for hundreds of years and its strength is equivalent to that of a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building. From the looks of it, it is probably a group of cultivators who have returned to open up a new secret realm. In the market, a knowledgeable cultivator whispered. Sure enough, not long after the iron feather eagle passed by, various monster birds, flying boats, etc. flew over the market one after another. Finally, it stopped in a wide square hundreds of feet away. Lu Xuan followed the crowd and took a look from a distance. That's Xuan Wenhong, a high-level key training cultivator. Among the young talents of the Wang family, he has one of the highest cultivation levels. I heard that he was taken to the wilderness for training. A young man with a steady look walked out of the square, holding a red longsword in his hand, and there was a faint murderous aura as he walked. I don't know how the new secret realm is being developed. Do we casual cultivators have a chance to enter and get some leftovers? You want to enter the new secret realm with your key training level of the second level? Not to mention that the Wang family still has casual cultivators who will go to open up the secret realm and turn it upside down. Even if there are some good things left, you can't enter the entrance of the secret realm with your cultivation level. What exactly did these cultivators of the Wang family encounter in the secret realm? Each of them looked solemn. Don't be suspicious, they just came back to replenish supplies and rest normally. The casual cultivators in the market were talking about it, and Lu Xuan mixed in the crowd and observed carefully. In addition to a large group of cultivators from the Wang family, there were also hundreds of casual cultivators who returned. Many of the independent cultivators did not have storage bags, but their waists were bulging, which showed that they had made a lot of money. Every independent cultivator had an uneasy look on their faces, with suspicion, fear, and heaviness. Lu Xuan took a glance and did not find Zhang Han. However, he was not very worried about his safety. After all, it had not been long since Zhang Han came back last time, and the journey was long, so he would not easily waste time on the round trip. He quietly withdrew from the crowd. With so many cultivators coming back, it is estimated that a lot of good things will flow out of the market in the next 2 days. He planned to pay more attention. When he returned home, he took out the spiritual rice and monster meat, put them away carefully, and warned the stepping cloudlings not to enter the kitchen to steal meat, otherwise he would make it suffer. In the afternoon, Wang Shan came over. As soon as he entered the door, the young stepping cloudlynx stared at him fiercely with its green pupils and let out a low growl. Ah, this is a demon beast I bought at the market a few days ago. It's wild and untamed. I'm very sorry to have disturbed fellow Daoist Wang. Lu Xuan gently patted the head of the stepping cloudlynx, signaling it to calm down, and said to Wang Shan with a smile, "It's okay. Brother Lu is in a good mood and has raised such a demon beast. However, the eyes of this stepping cloudlynx look quite special. It's just for show, and there's nothing magical about it," Lu Xuan said casually. "As for raising such a little thing, it's mainly to let it guard the house. Besides, it's inevitable that I'll be a little bored if I stay in the house for a long time. It's always better to have something to accompany me. I'm not like you, Brother Wang, who has a warm and soft jade in his arms, day and night, and never misses his home," Lu Xuan teased. After not seeing each other for a while, Wang Shan's face was even brighter. Ha ha ha. Wang Shan laughed loudly. "I came here to remind Brother Lu. This time, hundreds of thousands of independent cultivators have returned from the new secret realm in the wilderness. Each of them has good things on them, which will naturally attract a lot of covetousness. They are also at their most sensitive time, so it is easy to cause conflicts. There were 2 fights in the North District today, and 3 independent cultivators died. In addition, the evil spirits in the wilderness are elusive, and may sneak in with them. Brother Lu, please pay more attention." "Thank you Brother Wang for reminding you," Lu Xuan said gratefully. No matter what the outside world is like, he will just stay in the yard and cultivate spiritual plants. If there is a cultivator who wants to take advantage of his peaceful farming life, he will not let that person have an easy time. Wang Shan talked for a few words and then went to patrol the streets of the North District. Lu Xuan closed the gate of the yard tightly, and the formation isolated the yard from the outside world. Not long after, a soft and sticky voice sounded outside the yard. "Brother Lu, are you home?" It was the concubine Wang Shan had taken. Lu Xuan opened the gate, and the beautiful Wang was standing quietly at the door. Her loose clothes could not hide her curvy figure. Her eyes were drooping, and when she saw Lu Xuan coming out, she looked up, as if the waves were flowing, full of charm. "Sister Wang, what do you want to talk to me about?" Lu Xuan asked. "I don't know what's going on in my house, and it always makes strange noises. I'm scared alone. Can you go over and help me, Brother Lu?" Wang looked timid, like a white rabbit, and would quickly hide at the slightest sign of trouble. A strange smile appeared on the corner of Lu Xuan's mouth. "The new lie what's, the husband is busy with affairs, and the wife has an accident at home. They have no choice but to seek help from the young neighbor. Why does this plot feel so familiar?" Chapter 36. Female cultivators will only affect my farming speed. With such a delicate female cultivator standing in front of him, inviting him to her home in the most gentle and graceful voice, it was impossible for Lu Xuan not to be moved. He suppressed his eager heart and comforted Wang. "Don't be afraid, sister-in-law. Are you sure there is a strange sound in the house? I have heard it more than once. It is a particularly strange sound. It sounds very scary. My heart is still beating non-stop." Wang lowered her eyebrows and pressed her slender white palm on her chest. Lu Xuan looked in the direction of her movements and saw a large area of snow-white fat. "Sister-in-law, you use this to test a spiritual plant master?" he muttered to himself and continued to ask Wang. "Did Brother Wang leave you self-defense magic tools and talismans? Are there any defensive formations in the courtyard? All of these are available." Hearing the woman's words, Lu Xuan frowned slightly. "Since Brother Wang left you a magic weapon and talisman for protection, why did you come to me? Your cultivation is at the 2nd level of key training, and I'm at the 3rd level of key training. I'm just a spiritual plant master, and not good at fighting. The two of us are about the same strength. I'm sorry I can't help you. I suggest that you either go to Brother Wang, or stay at home, and wait for Brother Wang to come back with the help of the formation and magic weapon," Lu Xuan said unceremoniously. "But, I'm a weak woman. I'm afraid to stay at home." "Brother Lu," Wang said timidly, looking pitiful. Bang! The answer was the sound of the courtyard door closing. Wang didn't give up and begged a few more times outside the courtyard, but Lu Xuan was unmoved and went straight into the house. Soon, the courtyard returned to silence. Lu Xuan listened carefully, and when he saw that there was no sound for a long time, he was relieved. He couldn't be sure whether what Wang said was true or false. If it was true, and there were indeed strange noises in her house, then going in would put him in danger. Besides, it would be hard to explain if Wang Shan came back and saw them alone in the same room. If it was false, then Wang Shi was either trying to seduce him or plotting against him. The possibility of falsehood was far greater than that of truth. After all, it made no sense for her to seek help from a strange cultivator at the 3rd level of key training instead of looking for her husband at the 5th level of key training. Heh, female cultivator. It will only affect my farming speed. Lu Xuan sneered and put the matter out of his mind. For the next 2 or 3 days, everything was calm. Lu Xuan observed that Wang Shan and Wang Shi did not show any abnormality, nor did they come to find him. He did not know whether the so-called strange noise had been successfully resolved, or whether it was completely fictitious. No one bothered him, and Lu Xuan was happy to be free and at ease. He cultivated spiritual plants every day, and watched 3 red-bearded carps fighting for spiritual rice by the spiritual spring pool. From time to time, he teased the young cloud-stepping lynx, and the young lynx occasionally cried out, still with the kind of clip-like sound with a distinctly rough and thick temperament. A few days later, under Lu Xuan's careful care, 4 more spirit firefly grasses entered the fully mature stage. 2 of them were of good quality, 1 was of superior quality, and 1 was of perfect quality. Based on the mature 13 spirit firefly grasses, Lu Xuan also saw that it was not an easy task to obtain spirit firefly grass of perfect quality. He asked himself that he had cultivated it to the greatest extent, but the possibility of perfect quality was still small. The 4 spirit firefly grasses brought 4 slightly flickering white light balls. Harvest 1 spirit firefly grass and gain 6 months of cultivation. With a flash of thought, the spiritual power in Lu Xuan's body suddenly increased, and his cultivation of the 5th level of key training became more stable. Harvest 1 spirit firefly grass and gain the 1st grade talisman explosion flame talisman. As the white light ball was absorbed, or thought flashed through Lu Xuan's mind, a fiery red talisman appeared in his hand. There were strange patterns drawn on the talisman. When it was connected, it looked like a blazing flame. Holding it in his hand, he felt a slight burning sensation. Lu Xuan put it into his storage bag. He never had too few talismans. Although a 1st grade talisman was only equivalent to a blow from a low level or mid level key training cultivator, the damage was limited, but if there were more of them, and they were used together, the effect would be extraordinary. When Kinming, who was at the 4th level of key training, attacked him, the many talismans he had accumulated played a crucial role. Harvest a plant of Lingyiang grass and obtain the magic of earth attraction. The thought flashed through his mind, and Lu Xuan had a deeper understanding of the principles, speed, and control of the earth attraction, as if he had performed it hundreds or thousands of times in an instant. He vaguely felt that his control over the earth attraction had reached the realm of great success. It was so small that it could accurately change the terrain of the size of gravel. If the spiritual power was sufficient, it could even cause the earth's crust to vibrate. The talismans and spells brought by the tip-top quality plants did not surprise Lu Xuan. He looked down at the last white ball of light, which was left by the perfect quality Lingyiang grass. Lu Xuan had greater expectations for it. Harvest a Lingyiang grass and obtain the 1st grade treasure Thunderfire Pearl. The white ball of light disappeared, and a bead the size of a baby's fist appeared in front of Lu Xuan. The bead was fiery red, with many dark red fine lines on the surface, and lightning flashes could be vaguely seen inside. Thunderfire Pearl, a 1st grade treasure, can instantly burst out surging thunder and firepower when used. The thunder and firepower in the bead can be used a limited number of times. After it is consumed, it can be recharged in certain special spiritual power environments. It is a consumable treasure, and it can also be recharged with thunder and fire spiritual power, but it seems difficult to find a suitable place to recharge it. Lu Xuan looked at the Thunderfire Pearl in the center of his palm and thought secretly. This Thunderfire Pearl is not like a regular magic weapon. It is durable. Although it is consumable, it is different from disposable talismans. It can be used more times, and can be recharged and reused. This makes its value much higher than the talismans of the same grade. It is indeed a perfect quality spiritual plant, a gradeless spiritual firefly grass, and a 1st grade treasure like this bloomed in the light ball. The previous 1st grade silver splitting blade was collected and formed after opening many eclipse moon fruits. Although the Thunderfire Pearl in front of him is slightly less valuable than the silver splitting blade, it was only obtained from a mature spiritual firefly grass. This shows the importance of perfect quality spiritual plants. Lu Xuan only got 4 perfect quality plants from this batch of mature spiritual fireflies. Among them, 1 plant brought him a year of cultivation, 1 plant brought him a 2nd grade talisman sword energy thousands of talismans, and 1 plant brought a grass spirit essence liquid that condensed a lot of plant essence. The new one was not to be outdone and bloomed a treasure like the Thunderfire Pearl. Compared with other qualities of mature spiritual fireflies, the cultivation obtained is divided into 3 months, 6 months and 9 months according to the quality. The others are mainly 1st grade talismans, not graded magic, and the best is the 1st grade magic Zhengjin sword art. I must work harder on farming. I'm not greedy for any perfect level rewards. I just want to experience the heavy harvest after hard work. Lu Xuan put the Thunderfire Pearl into the storage bag and strengthened his determination. Chapter 37, The Evil Spirit. There are already 13 mature firefly grasses. If they are left alone, they may lose vitality and affect the quality. Lu Xuan plans to deliver these 13 to Beikao Tang and go to the market to see if there are any suitable spirit seeds and young animals. Little guy, do you want to go out with me? Before Lu Xuan finished speaking, he felt a slight sinking feeling on his right shoulder. He turned his head and saw the 4 white cloud-like feet of the green-eyed cloud stepping lynx gently stepping on his shoulder. The pair of green eyes looked straight ahead coldly, as if he didn't want to pay attention to Lu Xuan who turned his head. Lu Xuan's mind was focused on its body, and he instantly understood the joy in the lynx cub's heart. He was not surprised, chuckled, and asked the grass puppet that had returned to normal to take care of the spirit field more, and then brought the cloud-stepping lynx to the market. In the market, the number of casual cultivators was obviously much more than before. The many materials and spiritual medicines brought back from the new secret realm attracted many cultivators to enter the market. There were some new things on the stalls, and Lu Xuan strolled around slowly to see if there was anything he liked. Suddenly, a group of monks gathered 10 feet ahead and caught his attention. The monks were wearing standard robes, and Lu Xuan could tell at a glance that they were patrol guards in Linyang Market. Several patrol guards at the middle level of key training formed a circle with a black rope, on which were attached many strange talismans, and there was a burnt area on the circled open space. Lu Xuan saw a patrol guard throw an evil repelling talisman into the circle, and a pure white light flashed, giving people a sense of peace and tranquility. When the white light appeared, the other few people stared at the open space, as if they were facing a great enemy, and waited until the white light slowly disappeared, before they relaxed a little. Lu Xuan moved closer to the crowd with curiosity and soon learned some information. These patrol guards are quite responsible. The alienated monk has been dead for a day, but they are still guarding there, to prevent the appearance of evil spirits. There is no way. Everyone knows how terrible evil spirits are. It is better to be safe than sorry. At least 10 monks in the North District have died recently. Some were invaded and contaminated by evil spirits, and transformed into monsters, or killed by alienated monsters. I don't know if you have heard a piece of news in the market. It is said that the large number of evil spirits in the market this time has a lot to do with the Xuan family. Rumor has it that they broke the new formation and found a nest of evil spirits in the secret realm and were followed by the evil spirits all the way. Be careful with your words. This is not something that we, the low-level casual cultivators of key training, can discuss casually so as not to cause trouble. All we can do is how to survive this invasion of evil spirits. The discussion gradually subsided and slowly began to shift to new topics. The monks died of alienation, and the evil spirits invaded. Lu Xuan vaguely grasped to key words. I didn't expect so many things to happen after I didn't go out for a few days. Strange level evil spirits. He felt a little heavy in his heart. The classification of evil spirits is different from that of monsters. It is divided into 4 grades, namely, strange level, disaster level, and disaster level. Strange level evil spirits have strange and bizarre abilities, which are equivalent to those of key training cultivators. Strange level evil spirits have strange and unpredictable abilities, and their strength is generally equivalent to that of foundation building cultivators. Although the Xuan family and other families and forces in the market are blocking the way, if ordinary casual cultivators are affected in the slightest, it will be the result of death. Lu Xuan paid a little attention. Under the influence of this rumor, the prices of talismans such as exorcism talismans and warding off evil spirits in the market have increased a lot. Take a quick look in the market. If there is nothing, go to Baikotang as quickly as possible to deal with these more than 10 spiritual fireflies, and then go home immediately. Lu Xuan made a decision in his heart. The market was becoming more and more unsafe and peaceful. He planned to stay in the yard as much as possible to keep company with the spiritual plants and pets. As soon as he quickened his pace, Lu Xuan suddenly felt the weight of the cloud-stepping lynx on his shoulder increase. He turned his head and saw the young lynx staring coldly ahead, making a strange growl. The original sound has come out. Did it find something? Seeing the lynx's abnormality, Lu Xuan slowed down his pace. The posture of the lynx next to him reminded Lu Xuan of the action of it staying at the edge of the spiritual spring pond and ambushing the red-bearded carp. This action meant that the cloud-stepping lynx entered the offensive state. The lynx's strange eyes seemed to be able to see things that are difficult to detect normally. Lu Xuan thought of the information he had obtained about the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx when he started to raise it. Thinking of this, he was startled, and the silver blade on his waist made a slight buzzing sound, and the second grade sword key 10,000 talisman quietly slid to the mouth of his sleeve. According to my normal behavior and the direction that the cloud-stepping lynx is looking at, the most likely place for something unusual is in front of me. His expression remained unchanged, and he naturally stopped at the nearest stall, pointed at a random item, and asked the stall owner quietly about the price. His body was actually in a tense state, and his attention was all on the monks around him. "It's too expensive, I don't want it." He ignored what the stall owner said, and left a casual sentence, and was about to return to the original path. Suddenly, 2 or 3 feet in front of him, a casual cultivator groaned, and cracks of various sizes appeared on his face and neck in an instant. Countless red granulations shot out from the cracks at a rapid speed, growing in the wind, and instantly became blood-red tentacles, frantically attacking the surrounding monks. A monk near him was unable to react in time, and his head was pierced by the blood-red tentacles. As early as the moment the granulations appeared, Xuan hurriedly retreated, with a swift talisman attached to each of his left and right legs, swift as the wind, floating to the back. The other monks around him used all their means, and for a moment, spells, magic tools, and talismans flew everywhere. The blood-red tentacles grew very fast, and they were about to cover the surrounding area of 10 to 20 feet. Xuan shot out like a sharp arrow, leaving several cultivators behind. Suddenly, a high earth wall appeared in front of him and several cultivators, blocking the figures of Xuan and others. The moment the earth wall appeared, Xuan noticed a cultivator in front of him with a grim smile on his face. "A bunch of idiots. It's okay if I can't outrun the evil spirits, as long as I can run faster than you." The casual cultivator who used the earth wall talisman was proud of himself, and felt that he was extremely smart. Xuan quickly bypassed the earth wall, and the casual cultivator had already run a considerable distance with the help of these few breaths of obstruction. Xuan was extremely annoyed that he was used as a shield like this. He activated his spiritual power and instantly used the Zhengjin sword out of the Great Accomplishment realm. A golden stream of light hit the casual cultivator's leg accurately in the chaos, and blood immediately flowed out, and a huge hole appeared on his calf. The casual cultivator wailed in pain and couldn't help but stop in pain. Xuan passed by him expressionlessly. "Aren't we going to compete to see who can run faster? You can't run, even if I tell you to." He looked back and saw several blood-red tentacles like giant pythons attacking the casual cultivator lying on the ground. Chapter 38, Spiritual Seeds Like Smoke and Mist. The patrols in the market reacted quickly. When the blood-red tentacles were wreaking havoc, a handful of green seeds shot out like sharp arrows and landed around the tentacles. In an instant, thick vines emerged from the ground, growing and extending rapidly, constantly splitting and tightly wrapping around the blood-red tentacles. The blood-red tentacles struggled hard and wrestled with the thick vines. A crisp cry sounded in the sky. Xuan heard the sound and looked over, only to see a huge firebird floating in the air, with its wings spread out, a full 4 or 5 feet long, and various heat waves formed when it flapped gently. Then, it turned into a red light, and rushed towards the alien monk who had split into many tentacles. Wherever it passed, the ground was burned into black charcoal. The alien monk whose body was occupied by the tentacles let out a painful wail, and turned into black ash in the raging sea of fire. The flames rose along the roots of the tentacles, burning the blood-red tentacles that spread everywhere. On the ground, broken tentacles were wriggling everywhere, as if they wanted to invade other monks' bodies again. Unfortunately, the flames were too lethal, and all the tentacles were burned clean. Then, another pure white halo was centered on the remains of the alienated monk, and it surged around. Xuan and other monks in the distance were swept by the halo, and they couldn't help but feel a sense of peace and tranquility. It can only be said that this monk was alienated at the wrong time. There happened to be several mid-level key training monks patrolling and guarding here. Otherwise, with so many casual cultivators in the market, he would most likely cause a big commotion. Xuan looked at the several mid-level key training monks who appeared around the remains of the alienated monk. They were just checking whether there was any evil power left, and in a blink of an eye, they worked together to personally deal with a monk contaminated by evil spirits. The solution was simple and effective. The vines restrained the tentacles for a short period of time, preventing more casualties. It also gave his companions a short time to perform powerful spells. The firebird burned the alienated monk cleanly, and then used purification spells to detect the remains of the monk and the surrounding scattered cultivators. As expected of the patrol guards in the market, the cooperation between each other is very smooth and natural. Lu Xuan thought that, if he encountered this alienated monk alone, with the Zhengjin sword out of the Great Accomplishment realm, the first grade special magic weapon Silver Blade, and the second grade talisman sword Xuan Qian Talisman, which is equivalent to the full strength attack of a high level key training monk, and the newly acquired Thunderfire Pearl, it should be no problem to get rid of the alienated monk. It's just that it can't be done so cleanly. It seems that I still have to work hard to grow spiritual plants and add as many means as possible to myself. He decided secretly in his heart. From the alienation of the monk to the successful solution, the whole process was extremely short. After a brief chaos in the scattered cultivator market, order was restored again, as if the alienated monk had never appeared. However, the large area of charred black left on the spot and the 3 cultivators who were killed by the tentacles reminded everyone present of what had just happened. Among the 3, there was naturally the cultivator who used the earth wall technique to block Lu Xuan. After Lu Xuan used the Zhengjin sword technique to pierce his calf, he became unable to move and died under the blood-red tentacles. Lu Xuan had no sympathy for this. Everything was his own fault. If he hadn't tried to use himself to block the tentacles, he wouldn't have taken action casually. After this small disturbance in the market, Lu Xuan no longer had the idea of wandering around. He randomly chose a road and rushed to Beiqiaotang. Beiqiaotang was not far from the Sanxiu market. You could see the shop after turning a few corners. Suddenly, Lu Xuan stopped, and his eyes were attracted by the wooden board on a stall next to him. There were 8 black words written on the board. Special spiritual seeds, sold at a low price. Lu Xuan scanned the goods on the stall and did not find anything related to spiritual seeds. Excuse me, fellow Daoist, what is the special spiritual seed you mentioned on this wooden board? Can you show it to me? Here, that's it. The stall owner was an ordinary middle-aged cultivator with a cultivation level of the 4th level of key training. Hearing Lu Xuan's question, he pointed to an object on the stall. The object was oval in shape and light white. If you don't pay attention, you will miss it. There are wisps of smoke inside, and the shape is constantly changing, evolving into all kinds of strange things. Is this a spiritual seed? Fellow Daoist, you are not lying to me, right? Lu Xuan asked curiously. It was difficult for him to associate such a thing that was constantly changing like smoke with a spiritual seed. To be honest, I can't tell whether it is a spiritual seed or not. After I came back, I went to see a few friends who are spiritual plant masters and showed them this thing. They couldn't tell whether it was a spiritual seed or not. However, when I got it, I found it from a withered spiritual plant. It is possible that the spiritual plant has entered the mature stage and no one has picked it. The essence of the whole body condensed into such a spiritual seed. That's absolutely true. If you really want to buy it, I can make a vow for what I just said. Lu Xuan stroked his chin and fell into deep thought. After the stall owner said that he could make a vow, he believed it a little bit. There are many kinds of vows among cultivators. If one of them is violated, there is even a risk of death. The way spiritual seeds condense is not surprising. After wild spiritual plants mature, some will continue to grow and increase in age. Some will wither naturally, and some will condense into spiritual seeds by chance, and continue in another way. Although I don't know what this thing in front of me is, looking at its magical form, it is very likely to be a rare spiritual seed. If you can really make a vow to your demon, I'm quite interested. How much would you like to pay? Lu Xuan asked the stall owner. I spent a lot of effort to get this spirit seed from the new secret realm. If you want it, just give me 15 spirit stones. The stall owner saw that Lu Xuan was really interested, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. The thing on the stall could indeed be a spirit seed, but he had been displaying it in the market for a few days, and only a few people asked about it, and they were scared away by the price. After all, 15 spirit stones are too expensive to buy a spirit seed whose type and planting method are unknown. Lu Xuan is very thoughtful and caught the change in the stall owner's expression and sighed softly. Fellow Daoist, your price is too high, isn't it? For a thing that is not sure whether it is a spirit seed, you offer a price far higher than that of a first grade spirit seed. With 15 spirit stones, I can buy 3 or 4 first grade spirit seeds. He kept shaking his head, seeming to be dissatisfied with the price. Then, fellow Daoist, tell me the price. 7 spirit stones, I'll take it right away. This price is already much higher than an ordinary first grade spirit seed. Lu Xuan cut the price by more than half. No, at least 10 spirit stones. You see its appearance, it is very likely a second grade or even higher spirit seed. The stall owner argued with a red face. Even if it is a second grade spirit seed, what's the use of not knowing how to plant it? Should I keep it in the storage bag and let its vitality continue to fade? Lu Xuan retorted. How about this? I'll take a loss. 8 spirit stones. I only have these spirit stones. I can't take more. Add 50 broken spirits, and it will belong to you. Fellow Daoist. The stall owner gritted his teeth and said, deal. Lu Xuan agreed readily. Chapter 39. This batch of goods is of good quality. The two reached an agreement. Lu Xuan and the other stall owners swore an oath to give him 8 spirit stones and 50 broken spirits in exchange for the spirit seed with a wisp of smoke. After the payment was settled, he was in a good mood and came all the way to Baikao. Manager he saw him from afar and ran out. Why are you here today, kid? I heard that an alien cultivator just appeared in the casual cultivator market, causing several casualties. You didn't run into him, did you? He grabbed Lu Xuan and walked into Baikao, then relaxed a little. Unfortunately, I ran into him, but I escaped in time and was not affected. Lu Xuan said. I don't know whether to say you are lucky or not. It's rare for you to come out and encounter such a dangerous thing. Fortunately, you didn't get hurt. The thin old man sighed. In a short period of time, the market has become extremely unstable. There are cultivators dying everywhere, and evil figures appear from time to time. I think it's better for you to become a full-time spiritual plant master in the hall. After you come in, you will be protected by high-level cultivators of key training, so you don't have to worry about similar things happening again. Manager he invited Lu Xuan again, wanting him to enter Baikao Hall and be protected by the high-level cultivators in the hall. Lu Xuan knew that he had good intentions and made this suggestion because he was worried about his own safety, but there were too many spiritual fields and spiritual plants involved, and he didn't want to live under someone else's roof and be restricted everywhere. Manager I appreciate your good intentions, but I'm really lazy and free, and I can't stand all kinds of restrictions, so I'd better stay in my own yard. Anyway, I basically don't go out. I just want to stay at home and grow spiritual plants well, which should be able to avoid most of the dangerous things. Okay, then it's up to you. This time, are you here because the spiritual firefly grass has entered the mature stage? Seeing that Lu Xuan had made up his mind, the thin old man stopped persuading him and changed the subject and asked him. That's right. 13 spirit firefly grass have already matured. How about you come and take a look at the quality? Lu Xuan said with a chuckle. Seeing how proud you are, I guess the quality is good. Take it out for me to see. Manager he saw Lu Xuan's expression and became more curious. Lu Xuan's mind moved, and 13 spirit firefly grasses were taken out of the storage bag and dropped in front of Manager he. Superior quality spirit firefly grass. Superior quality. Huh? Is this perfect quality? The thin old man couldn't help but look up and look at Lu Xuan with a hint of surprise in his eyes. He calmed down and focused on the spirit firefly grass in front of him again. This one is of good quality. Superior quality. Perfect quality again. Then, 4 perfect quality spirit firefly grasses appeared one after another, which shocked Manager he at first, but then turned to numbness and calmness. This batch of goods is of very good quality. I didn't expect that you could actually grow Lingian grass of perfect quality. It really surprised me. There were 13 Lingian grasses, and 4 of them were of perfect quality. The thin old man couldn't help but think back. It seemed that the experienced and senior spiritual plant masters in Baikao couldn't guarantee this probability. What's more, this is under the premise that the spiritual energy of the spiritual fields belonging to Baikao is more abundant and pure. If Lu Xuan was allowed to use the spiritual fields in the hall to plant, wouldn't the possibility of Lingian grass of perfect quality appear be greater? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh deeply. if he invited him to become a full-time spiritual plant master in the hall because he was worried about Lu Xuan's safety. Now it was completely a pity that Baekeo Tang couldn't have a talented spiritual plant master like Lu Xuan. Luck, I can achieve such an achievement, but I just spent the time that others used to practice on cultivating spiritual plants. Lu Xuan said with a smile. Haha, there will always be rewards for hard work. Manager, he laughed heartily. Come, let's settle the accounts. The purchase price is still the same as before. 3 spirit stones and 50 broken spirits for each good quality plant. 20 broken spirits for each superior quality plant, and 4 spirit stones for each perfect quality plant. Total, 48 spirit stones and 70 broken spirits. Lu Xuan calculated in his mind, confirmed that it was correct, and took the spirit stones handed over by the thin old man. In this way, his net worth exceeded 100 again, and his hand reached more than 120 spirit stones. Although the price of the firefly grass seeds provided by Baekeo Tang to Lu Xuan was 1 or 2% lower than the spiritual seeds on the market. According to the agreement between the two parties, the purchase price of mature spiritual plants was still based on the normal price. The reason why Baekeo Tang sold the spiritual seeds to Lu Xuan and other spiritual plant masters at a low price was to obtain priority after the spiritual medicine matured. In other words, it sacrificed the benefits of some spiritual seeds in exchange for a targeted, stable, and better quality spiritual medicine source. If the firefly grass you send later is of this quality, then I can help you say a few good words in front of the eldest lady and apply for the remaining first grade or even second grade spiritual seeds for you. Manager, he looked at Lu Xuan and said solemnly. Second grade spiritual seeds. Lu Xuan's tone was a little surprised when he came here last time, because the two sides had just established a cooperative relationship, and he had no outstanding achievements. The young female monk who was in charge of Baekeo Tang did not trust him very much, so she only provided 100 spiritual firefly grass seeds and 20 blood jade ginseng spiritual seeds. The quality is definitely guaranteed. As for the rest, I'll trouble you a lot. I'll bring you a bag of spiritual tea leaves another day, he said to the thin old man with gratitude. That's not necessary. If you grow high quality spiritual medicine for the hall, I will naturally benefit a lot as a recommender. Manager, he said with a smile. After Lu Xuan sold the spiritual firefly grass, he did not stay for long. He was cautious and alert all the way, and returned home quickly. When he returned home, he closed the gate and activated the formation. He took out a demon repelling talisman from his storage bag. Under the stimulation of spiritual power, a pure white light appeared and swept around Lu Xuan without any movement. Lu Xuan finally relaxed completely and put down the cloud stepping links that had been quietly on his shoulder. Thanks to you for reminding me today, little guy. You did a good job. I will reward you with 2 more pieces of porcupine jerky later. At the casual cultivator market, if the green eyes of the cloud stepping lynx had not discovered the abnormality in advance, Lu Xuan would still be injured, even if he had magic tools and many talismans. Thinking of this, he gently touched the 2 small tufts of hair on the tip of the cloud stepping lynx's ears and said gently. The green eyes of the cloud stepping lynx glanced at Lu Xuan indifferently and let him touch his head. Ah, jerky, my favorite jerky. Lu Xuan seemed to see a lively and lovely soul stomping on 4 white cloud paws and cheering and jumping in its cold and arrogant body. But when he thought of the rough roar of the cloud stepping lynx, the little figure in his body immediately disappeared. Feeling the palm on his head stop moving, the green-eyed cloud stepping lynx tried to hold it in a low voice. Chapter 40, Phantom Smoke Fruit. After Lu Xuan rewarded the cloud stepping lynx, he took out the special spirit seed that looked like smoke from his storage bag. He found an empty area in the spirit field and cast the earth attraction technique. The spirit soil had just the right cracks, and the spirit seed of smoke was taken in. Then, his mind focused on the seeds in the spirit soil. Or thought came to his mind. The illusionary smoke fruit is a 3rd grade spirit plant. When it matures, it can speed up the practice of illusion and enhance the power of the spell. It can also be used to raise monsters with related abilities, or to refine some special elixirs. Spirit plants will continue to produce smoke during their growth process, and even after accumulating for a long time, it may form a low-level illusion. The spirit plant is hidden in the illusion and its position is difficult to distinguish. I'm right in front of you. Why can't you find me? Lu Xuan's mind flashed with detailed information and real-time status about the spirit seed. 3rd grade spirit plant. This time it's a success. Lu Xuan digested the information that appeared in his mind and couldn't help but be overjoyed. 3rd grade. That can be considered to have entered the foundation building category. So far, the best spiritual plants in the spiritual field are 2 2nd grade plants, namely the sword grass and the dark marrow. Others such as the blood jade ginseng, the red cloud pine, and the pure snow lotus are all 1st grade, and there are even dozens of ungraded spiritual fireflies. The 2 2nd grade spiritual plants were obtained in the same way as the Xuan and Luo fruit. They were all unknown spiritual seeds that were found and successfully planted with the help of the information revealed by the real-time status. If there is no such magical ability, even if you get an unknown spiritual seed, you can only grope around blindly and not know how to do it. After the Xuan and Luo fruit spiritual seed was planted, Lu Xuan's spiritual consciousness detected that wisps of extremely faint smoke seeped out from the seed, which was difficult to see with the naked eye. When it grows up a little, there will be more smoke, and it will probably play hide and seek with me, but I can see the real-time status of the spiritual plant, so I don't have to worry about not being able to find it. Lu Xuan cast the spiritual rain technique on the spiritual seed and thought secretly. After planting the Xuan and Luo fruit spiritual seed and understanding its characteristics, Lu Xuan went to other areas of the spiritual field to check the growth of each spiritual plant. Inside the red pine leaves of the red cloud pine, the 5 pine nuts have grown in size and are getting closer to maturity. Lu Xuan has high expectations for this 1st grade spiritual plant. The mature spiritual plants before, whether it is the firefly grass or the eclipse moon fruit, are only non-grade spiritual plants. It is unknown what kind of light ball rewards a 1st grade spiritual plant can bring. The sword grass and the dark marrow mushroom are also growing well, but it seems that there is still a long time before they mature. The spiritual soil around the sword grass is plowed into many small trenches by the sword intent, and the sword intent is even sharper. The dark red hyphae extended by the dark marrow mushroom surrounds the rotten spiritual wood tightly, and the speed of absorbing nutrients from the rotten wood is obviously faster than before. Lu Xuan estimates that it will not be long before a new rotten wood is replaced. The pure snow lotus stands proudly in the spiritual spring pool. Several white jade lotus leaves are not as tender as when they first grew out. They have quietly grown without knowing it. After more than 10 firefly grasses matured at the beginning, they entered a rapid maturity stage. Lu Xuan looked through them and collected 10 fully mature firefly grasses. The remaining dozens of grasses could also be picked, but they were not fully mature. Lu Xuan was afraid that it would affect the light ball reward, so he kept them for now. Among the 10 firefly grasses, 2 were of perfect quality. Among the remaining 8, 5 were of good quality and 3 were of superior quality. Harvest 1 firefly grass and gain 6 months of cultivation. *2. Harvest 1 firefly grass and gain 9 months of cultivation. Harvest 1 firefly grass and gain 1 year of cultivation. Among the 10 grasses, 4 white light balls brought cultivation rewards. Waves of spiritual power suddenly rose in Lu Xuan's body. He moved rapidly, controlling the spiritual power to gradually calm down, increasing nearly 3 years of cultivation in one go. Farming is fascinating. Lu Xuan sighed. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass. Obtain the 1st grade talisman sword key talisman. *3. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass. Obtain the 1st grade talisman exorcism talisman. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass. Obtain the magic wood growing technique. 4 talismans appeared in Lu Xuan's hands one after another. Although the 1st grade talismans can only have a good killing effect on low level and middle level key training cultivators, it is difficult to threaten high level key training cultivators. However, as long as the number is large enough and the firepower is strong enough, it is not impossible to kill a high level key training cultivator. After absorbing the white light ball containing the wood growing technique, Lu Xuan's understanding of it became more profound and thorough, as if he had performed it hundreds of times in an instant, and it was easier to perform it. The last white light ball was left by a Lingyiang grass of perfect quality. Lu Xuan picked it up, and the light ball turned into countless light points, and poured into his sea of consciousness. Suddenly, a thought emerged from his sea of consciousness. Harvest 1 Lingyian grass, and obtain the first grade Yankee pill recipe. Another recipe. Lu Xuan recalled the recipe information that appeared in his mind and instantly mastered its refining method. Material type, quantity, processing method, temperature control, furnace opening time. Although he has not yet put it into practice, he has rich experience in refining this grade Yankee pill, including the Yuan pill recipe I got before. I now have 2 recipes. If I absorb the light ball with the recipe again and improve my refining level to proficiency or even mastery, I can try it in my spare time. Lu Xuan put the 10 Lingyian grass he collected into a jade box and put it into the storage bag. According to the current maturity rate of Lingyian grass, he estimated that he would have to go to Baikao Tang again in 2 or 3 days. After inspecting the spiritual field, Lu Xuan planned to go back to the house to practice. Seeing this, the stepping cloud lynx on the side stopped teasing the red carp in the spiritual spring pool and stepped lightly on the ground with 4 cotton-like feet, following Lu Xuan gracefully. Fellow Daoist, are you home? We are the stewards of the market town. There are evil figures everywhere in the market town. In order to maintain the order of the market town, we are conducting routine inspections. I hope you can understand and tolerate us. Not long after, a voice sounded outside the courtyard. The steward of the market town is here to check. Lu Xuan knew it was difficult to refuse, so he opened the gate with doubts. Outside the courtyard, 3 cultivators stood, all of them with a serious look. One of them was at the 5th level of key training, and the other 2 were at the 3rd level of key training. Hello, fellow Daoist. The cultivator at the 5th level of key training was obviously the leader among the 3. When he saw Lu Xuan coming out, he greeted him. Lu Xuan nodded in greeting, looking reserved. How do you want to check? We will use magic tools to search the courtyard where you live, and at the same time, we will release a magic to exorcise evil spirits on you. Please forgive me. A cultivator at the 3rd level of key training explained behind him. You can use the magic to exorcise evil spirits, but it's really inconvenient to search the house carefully. After all, no one wants their privacy to be invaded at will. Lu Xuan declined. He didn't mind using magic to exorcise evil spirits, but he was not happy to search the house. After all, he didn't want others to see the rare spiritual plants in the spiritual field. If there was an evil spirit, the magic would be enough to detect it. There was no need to search the house. Lu Xuan was sure that the big families and big forces in the market, and even Wang Shan next door, would not enter the house for a detailed search. What a helplessness of a casual cultivator. If it really doesn't work, this is the only way. Lu Xuan sighed secretly and stretched his fingers to his sleeves. Seeing this, the 3 of them felt as if they were facing a great enemy. Chapter 41. Report if you can't beat them. As the 3 of them were nervous, Lu Xuan took out a handful of spiritual stones from his sleeve and enthusiastically stuffed them into the hands of the intermediate key training cultivator. 3 Daoists, it's really too hard to check all the way here. Here are a few spiritual stones. As a token of respect, please have a cup of spiritual tea. The most sincere and enthusiastic smile appeared on Lu Xuan's face. The leading intermediate key training cultivator couldn't refuse, so he took it and weighed the spiritual stones in his hand. With his experience, he instantly knew the approximate number and showed a satisfied smile on his face. Seeing him accept the spiritual stones, Lu Xuan relaxed a little. He didn't want the 3 of them to enter his spiritual field and see the rare and precious spiritual plants such as swordgrass and dark marrow Ganoderma, so as to prevent them from being coveted and causing trouble. If they refused by force, he was confident that with the same key training level of the 5th level, plus the 1st grade special magic weapon Silver Blade, the 2nd grade talisman sword key 10,000 talisman and Thunderfire Pearl, he could kill the 3 of them in an instant. But he couldn't bear the impact afterwards. After all, there were many people around, and it was impossible to deal with the 3 people without anyone noticing. This way was not feasible, so he could only bribe. 20 spirit stones could eliminate a possible storm, which was acceptable. He had a fake smile on his face, remembering the 3 people, especially the leader of the middle level key training cultivator, and secretly determined to take back double the amount, if he had the chance. The middle level key training cultivator put all the 20 spirit stones into his storage bag without leaving a trace. The 2 third level key training cultivators next to him looked normal, as if they didn't see it. I see that you are a handsome man, open and honest, and you will definitely not be connected with evil spirits. Let me 2 of my men go through the formalities and go into your yard to take a look. The middle level key training cultivator said to Xuan with a smile. Xuan was stunned and understood the hidden meaning in his words, and suddenly a nameless anger rose in his heart. I've already given you 20 spirit stones. It would be fine if you swallowed them alone, but you want me to feed your 2 subordinates. Aren't you afraid of getting a stomachache? If he was just trying to get back at the middle level key training cultivator, after the words came out, Xuan had a strong desire to kill the 3 people. He led 2 third level key training cultivators into the courtyard and stuffed 5 spirit stones into each of them. The 2 glanced at them casually and left with satisfaction. My spirit stones are not so easy to earn. Xuan followed the 2 out of the courtyard, looking at the 2 figures from behind, and sneered in his heart. Just as the 3 wanted to go to another courtyard, Xuan suddenly came out of his house. Seeing the middle level key training cultivator, his eyes lit up. Brother Tan, why are you here? Why don't you come into the house to see me, your junior brother? Xuan walked over with a red face and a smile. Isn't it because of the mission requirements from above? I'm busy with official business. There are endless evil spirits in the market, so I have to come out to check more. Junior brother Xuan, I haven't seen you for a long time. You have a much deeper cultivation. The intermediate key training cultivator smiled and responded. So that's how it is. This fellow Lu is my neighbor. He loves to cultivate spiritual plants the most. He is simple and honest. Senior brother Tan, you didn't make things difficult for him, did you? How could that be? Brother Lu is an extremely upright person at first glance. Naturally, he can't be involved with evil spirits. The intermediate key training cultivator surnamed Tan said, without mentioning the fact that he had just embezzled 20 spirit stones from Xuan. That's good. Let me introduce you to each other. This is fellow Xuan, a 3rd level key training cultivator and a spiritual plant master. This Tan Xianadang is the deacon in charge of security in the market. He has a deep cultivation and has entered the 5th level of key training for many years. He is my senior brother. Xuan introduced the identities of both parties to each other. I have long admired you. Fellow Daoist Tan is impartial and dedicated. It is a blessing for many cultivators in the market to have such a high-level steward to protect you. Xuan said in a yin-yang way. Xuan, why didn't you come out earlier? If you had come out earlier, I might have saved those dozens of spiritual stones, and your life would have been saved. He couldn't help but complain in his heart, feeling very sorry for the 30 spiritual stones he had lost. Inside the yard, seeing Xuan come in, the cloud-stepping lynx, who had been quietly staying in the corner, suddenly growled. Quiet. Xuan gently patted the grey hair on its pointed ears. The cloud-stepping lynx cub stared coldly at Xuan and others with a pair of emerald green pupils, no longer awing, but just grinning. After a few words, Xuan left with Tan Xianadang and the other 2. After the figures of the few people disappeared, the young cloud-stepping lynx calmed down, regained its elegant posture, and jumped lightly, and 4 white clouds landed on Xuan's shoulders. Don't bark casually in the future, understand? Xuan picked it up, put it on the ground, and pulled the hair on the tip of its ear. The green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx pinched its throat, and tried to make a clip sound. Xuan suddenly found something wrong. He clearly remembered that when Xuan came in just now, the cry of the young lynx was not as artificial as it is now, but rough and straightforward. In addition to the first time it made such a roar in front of him, this sound only appeared 3 times. Twice was when Xuan entered his courtyard, and once was when he found the alienated monk at the market. His expression suddenly became cold. That time at the market, the young lynx found something abnormal in the monk. Did he also find something when he roared when he met Xuan twice? Did you find anything from that neighbor? Xuan thought of the mysterious green eyes of the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx and asked it. The cloud-stepping lynx was a different species of demon beast, and its intelligence was not low. It stared with round eyes and nodded its little head. Same as the alienated monk in the market? Lu Xuan continued to ask. The young beast nodded first, then shook its head. What does nodding and shaking your head mean? By the way, the time point when the monk in the market was alienated was after many monks who had reclaimed the secret realm came back, and the evil spirit broke out. The lynx had roared to remind me when it saw Wang Shan before. Nodding means that there is an evil spirit or other abnormality in Wang Shan's body, and shaking his head means that he is different from the alienated monk in the market. Lu Xuan guessed roughly. There is such a time bomb around me. How should I deal with it properly? Should I fight back, or take the initiative? If I do nothing, it would be too passive. You can only be a thief for 1,000 days, but you can never be on guard against thieves for 1,000 days. But if I take the initiative, I don't know if I can win. If it's just Wang Shan's 5th level key training strength, it's okay. There is a lot of hope, but with the unknown evil in his body, it's unpredictable. And Wang Shan is a small patrol leader in the market, with an official background. It's easy to involve more. More importantly, we don't know what evil and weird things may exist behind him. Lu Xuan was in a dilemma for a while. If he doesn't solve it, living near Wang Shan, he has to worry all the time, and it's not realistic to move out. After all, he paid so much rent to rent this yard. But if he solves it, it's easy to put himself at risk. Is there any safe and effective way? Lu Xuan pondered secretly. I got it. Isn't Linyang Market cleaning out evil spirits recently? Why not use this as an excuse to let them solve the problem internally? If I can't beat them, I can report them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Grass Puppet Guarding the Spiritual Field. I just want to farm quietly. Why do you want to disrupt my life? After getting the special light ball of the spiritual field, Lu Xuan had the idea of being indifferent to the world. He no longer tried every means to compete with countless casual cultivators for a trace of illusory opportunities. That's why he rejected Zhang Hang and the Beikao Tang spiritual plant master's invitation to explore the secret realm. On weekdays, he is also kind to others and rarely goes out. Wang Shan was possessed by an evil spirit, which is likely to destroy his current peaceful life. Lu Xuan had to try to take the initiative to solve it. Then who should I report Wang Shan to? You must be obviously stronger than him, and you don't have a close relationship with him. Lu Xuan pondered for a while, recalling that Wang Shan had scolded one of his superiors behind his back when he drank with him. He had considered solving it through the relationship of Beikao Tang, but in the end he gave up. After all, he had just started cooperating with Beikao Tang, and his influence was not strong. He had no achievements to show for himself, and he didn't know anyone with high power. The only person he was close to, Manager He, was not of high status. There is another point that must be paid attention to. You must hide your identity well, so as not to fail to report successfully in the end, but implicate yourself instead. After finding a target for reporting, Lu Xuan secretly inquired about it and began to prepare for action. Linyang Market, North District Law Enforcement Hall. A huge building covering an area of more than 10 acres, with rich spiritual energy and exotic flowers and plants everywhere. Ling Peng sat at the table, flipping through a book of refining in his hand. He usually likes quietness, and deliberately chose a courtyard located on the side of the law enforcement hall to work. There is a lush spiritual tree planted outside the window. He would look at it and relax his eyes when he has nothing to do. He is one of the several high-level key training monks in the law enforcement hall. Most of the time, he just sits in the hall and only comes out when a large-scale evil spirit attacks. Suddenly, he exclaimed softly, and a shield covered with grey and black scales flashed out of the storage bag and flew around him. At the moment when the grey and black shield appeared, a golden stream of light shot into the house like a sharp arrow. Ding sound. To Ling Peng's surprise, the golden light did not rush towards him, but shot directly at the beam inside the house, and it did not dissipate for a long time. Who is so bold as to attack the monks of the law enforcement hall? A trace of anger appeared on Ling Peng's face, and his shield flew automatically, and his spiritual power was running at its maximum. A few breaths passed, and there was no movement outside. Ling Peng looked at the golden sword energy on the beam with doubt. The sword energy has not dissipated for so long, which shows that the monk behind it has extraordinary attainments in swordsmanship. Ling Peng sighed, and found that a palm-sized white paper was nailed to the beam by the golden sword energy. He dispersed the golden sword energy, and used the control technique, to control the white paper to float in front of him. There were 2 lines of crooked handwriting on the white paper, which was obviously intentional. Wang Shan may be contaminated by evil spirits, and Tan Xianadang, who is responsible for inspection, is likely to deliberately cover it up. Ling Peng read out the 2 lines of small words in a low voice. A ball of dark red flame suddenly appeared under the white paper, burning the white paper into black ash. Is the information here true or a prank? I remember that Wang Shan is a mid-level key training cultivator in the hall. He is at the 5th level of key training, which is considered a mid-level position. If even he is contaminated by evil spirits, then the law enforcement hall is likely to be in trouble. If it is a prank, the possibility is too low. He looked at the shallow traces of golden sword energy on the beams and thought to himself, the sword energy exerted by the person behind is silent and invisible. Even my high-level key training consciousness can only be discovered after getting close. The sword energy has not dissipated for a long time and is fierce, but it only leaves a shallow trace. It can be seen that he has been immersed in the sword for at least 10 years. The sword energy he has mastered is at the level of minor or even major success. His cultivation is likely to be at the higher level of key training. After all, it is too difficult for a mid-level key training cultivator to have such a level of sword skills. So, we still have to investigate and pay attention to the 2. Ling Peng made a decision secretly. He jumped up, stepped on a red flying sword, and circled around the law enforcement hall, but did not find any suspicious people. On the street not far away, Lu Xuan walked slowly on the Blueston Road. Not long after, a surge of spiritual consciousness swept over him. With the help of the breath-holding method, Lu Xuan only revealed his 3rd level key training cultivation at this time. The spiritual consciousness did not find anything abnormal, and disappeared in an instant. Lu Xuan walked at a normal pace, and did not show any panic. I sent such a message with the Zhengjin sword out of the Great Accomplishment Realm. I believe that the higher level key training cultivator who has a general relationship with Wang Shan will seriously consider my warning. At least he will pay more attention to Wang Shan. As for Tan Xianadang, who swallowed my spirit stone, but was not satisfied, I will trip him up by the way. When I find an opportunity, and can crush him with my strength, I will settle accounts with him. Lu Xuan reviewed his reporting action. With the help of the breath-holding method, he came to the target cultivator silently without attracting any attention, used the Zhengjin sword out of the Great Accomplishment Realm, brought the warning content, and then disguised himself as the 3rd level key training cultivation to avoid possible interrogation. It depends on whether it can work. At this point, regardless of whether Wang Shan was contaminated by the evil spirit or not, Lu Xuan could only remain unchanged and wait and see how the situation developed. Spiritual firefly grass, red cloud pine, sod grass, mature quickly. He returned to the yard and looked at the dozens of spiritual fireflies that were almost mature in the spiritual field, as well as the 5 red cloud pines that were getting bigger and darker, and the sword grass that stood straight like a sword blade. He felt much more at ease. As long as the spiritual plants mature, I can continue to accumulate strength. By then, even if the evil spirit in Wang Shan's body wants to harm me, I can solve it myself. At the edge of the spiritual spring pool, the green-eyed cloud-stepping lynx dug out a strange insect from somewhere, put down the strange insect, and when 3 red-bearded carp came out to fight for it in the spiritual spring pool, the snow-white paw quickly swept past and caught the strange insect back into the paw, and at the same time, grabbed the long whiskers and pulled the red-bearded carp out. The long whiskers kept extending and retracting in the air, causing the red-bearded carp below to bounce up and down. I told you not to catch fish, but you won't behave. You want to be beaten, right? Seeing this, Lu Xuan couldn't help but pat the pointed ears of the young cloud-stepping lynx. The young cloud stepping lynx put the red-bearded carp back into the spiritual spring pond with an indifferent look, walked aside, and fiddled with the dying alien insect in the ditch of the spiritual field. Xuan was worried that it would be unhappy after being hit by him, so he focused his attention on it. The master is touching it again today, this little guy. Xuan laughed dumbly. It turned out that the lynx caught the red-bearded carp to attract his attention. Even a beating was better than not touching it for a day. He suddenly had an idea and came to the front of the grass puppet that was patrolling the spiritual field. The grass puppet took the same steps and slowly circled around the spiritual field. After absorbing the grass spirit essence, the grass puppet has undergone significant changes and even gained some intelligence. I don't know what its current state will be. Xuan was curious and focused his mind on the grey-black body of the grass puppet. Guard the spirit field. Guard the spirit field. Guard the spirit field. The same words echoed in Xuan's mind. I've been out all day today, so I'm sorry that I can only update once. I'll make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 43, Fragrant and Pure Tea. You are such a good employee of mine who is so devoted to guarding the spiritual field. Xuan felt the same words echoing in his mind and looked at the grass puppet that kept patrolling and couldn't help saying, I must reward him heavily. He made up his mind, called the grass puppet over, fumbled in his arms for a few times, and took out a broken spirit. He hesitated for a moment, and took out another one, stuffing it into the grey grass tumor on the huge head of the grass puppet. Then, his mind focused on the grass puppet. Guard the spiritual field. Guard the spiritual field. The words read were still repetitive, but compared to before feeding the broken spirit, Xuan vaguely felt that the grass puppet had more joy in his heart. In the next 2 days, Xuan remained vigilant, and the silver blade and the sword key 10,000 talisman were almost in his hands, but there was no movement. Everything was normal. It seemed that the report 2 days ago had never appeared. The firefly grass in the spiritual field began to mature in large quantities, and Xuan picked 12 plants. Among the 12 plants, 2 were of perfect quality, 6 were of superior quality, and the other 4 were of good quality. Harvest 1 plant of firefly grass and gain 6 months of cultivation. **2. Harvest 1 plant of firefly grass and gain 9 months of cultivation. **2. Among the 12 white light balls, 4 were cultivation rewards, which brought Xuan 2.5 years of cultivation in total. 4 thoughts flashed through Xuan's mind, and waves of spiritual power surged in his body, surging and impacting the meridians and anshan in his body. After a long time, the raging spiritual power gradually subsided. Xuan slightly moved, and felt the strong spiritual power filling his limbs and bones, and a sense of security came naturally. If his cultivation level goes further, if he encounters the evil behind Wang Shan head on, he will have a better chance. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, obtain the first grade sword key talisman. **2. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, obtain the first grade ice thorn talisman. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, obtain the first grade exorcism talisman. The thought flashed through his mind, and 4 different talismans appeared in Xuan's hand one after another. Although they were only first grade talismans, they were not very effective against mid-level key training cultivators, but as long as there were enough of them, they could also have a good effect. After Kinbing used up most of his talismans, when he attacked him, Xuan collected dozens of first grade talismans during this period. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, obtain the first grade Zhengjin sword technique. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, obtain the magic wood growth technique. **2. Among the remaining 4 white light balls, 3 of them opened magic experience packs, which made Xuan's understanding of Zhengjin sword technique and wood growth technique more profound and thorough. Zhengjin sword technique has vaguely touched the threshold of the Grandmaster Elm, and the speed of casting, damage, and control ability have been further improved. The wood growing technique has reached the level of mastery. When performing it, one can see light green spiritual energy gathering at the branches and leaves of the spiritual plant. Compared with the beginning, the progress is very fast. Xuan gently picked up the last white light ball. The light ball turned into countless light points and disappeared into Xuan's body. Or thought flashed through his mind. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass and obtain the second grade talisman sword energy 10,000 talismans. A talisman with countless fine sword marks appeared in Lu Xuan's hand. The sword intent was sharp, as if it would penetrate his body at any time. 2 Lingyian grasses of perfect quality, one of which bloomed the second grade sword energy 10,000 talismans, and the other one is not sure whether it is a first grade talisman or Zhengjin sword art, which is not bad. Lu Xuan put away the talisman and put the Lingyian grass in a jade box. Now there are 23 mature Lingyian grasses collected. In order to prevent the loss of vitality, they must be sent to Baikao for processing. Lu Xuan opened the courtyard formation, told the grass puppet to pay more attention, and then took the green-eyed cloud stepping lynx out. Now, there is an alienated cultivator outside from time to time. It is safer to have a lynx cub by his side. In Baikao Hall, the hall is full of medicinal fragrance. There is no sign of Manager He. Only a few medicine boys are processing herbs. Brother Lu, you are here. Manager He has something to do inside. Please sit down first. I will make you a pot of hot tea. A medicine boy in his teens was sharp-eyed. When he saw Lu Xuan coming in, he quickly greeted him, moved a mahogany chair from the side, and placed it next to Lu Xuan, and quickly brought a cup of steaming spiritual tea. Okay. Lu Xuan sat down and took the spiritual tea. He could feel that compared with when he first came to Baikao Hall, the attitude of the medicine boys in the hall towards him had changed a lot. When he first came in, he was just a small casual cultivator at the second level of key training, with a few ordinary quality Lingyian grass, and shamelessly asked Manager He to take them away. The several medicine boys in the hall didn't even look at him. Gradually, he came into Baikao more and more often, and only 1 or 2 medicine boys nodded when he came in. After he established a cooperative relationship with Baikao, several medicine boys suddenly became enthusiastic and took the initiative to greet him as if they had known each other for many years. After selling perfect grade Lingyian grass continuously, they were even more enthusiastic, serving tea and pouring water, and being meticulous. Lu Xuan clearly understood that the reason for such a significant change was that he could grow a steady supply of high quality spiritual plants. He understood in his heart, and he also understood the value of Manager He and Zhang Hang's timely help. Before the tea was finished, Manager He came in a hurry. Lu boy, you are here? How many Lingyian grass did you bring this time? How is the quality? The thin old man asked curiously. I brought 22 plants. The quality will definitely not disappoint you. Lu Xuan replied with a smile. He took out more than 20 plants of firefly grass from the storage bag and put them on the counter. 9 plants of good quality, 9 plants of superior quality, and 4 plants of perfect quality. Manager He carefully examined them one by one, looked at Lu Xuan with complicated eyes, and sighed. You are growing too fast. There is not a single plant of ordinary quality among so many firefly grasses. The lowest is good quality, and the probability of perfect quality is not low. It seems that the perfect quality firefly grass you handed in before was not an accident. Being able to maintain such a planting efficiency all the time has exceeded most of the spiritual plant masters in Baikao. You know, they spend twice or even several times more effort on spiritual plants than you do. I also know that I'm very powerful, so how many spiritual stones can these firefly grasses be exchanged for? Lu Xuan supported his chin with his hand and smiled at Manager He, who was still sighing. You little brat, you're obsessed with money. Still the same old price. Let me calculate. It's a total of 77 spirit stones and 30 broken spirits. Do you think I'm right? Mr. He, your calculation must be correct. Lu Xuan took the more than 70 spirit stones he handed over, scanned them, and put them into the storage bag. Remember what I told you before. As long as you can grow high quality spirit plants stably, you can get an opportunity. There are a few spirit plants in the hall. They were entrusted to me. I was asked to find one from the cooperating spirit plant masters. I see that you are doing so well, so I plan to keep half for you. Oh. What spirit plants? Lu Xuan asked curiously. King Mio Spirit Tea. 2nd grade. Manager He said with a smile. Chapter 44. The Secret. 2nd grade spiritual plants. Hearing what the thin old man said, Lu Xuan couldn't help but sit up straight with a serious expression. Yes, the second grade King Neo spiritual tea seedlings. The tea leaves picked after maturity have the effect of clearing the mind and wisdom, and to a certain extent, can resist many types of evil spirits and pollution, and are very popular among mid-level and higher-level cultivators of key training. I have 6 seedlings in my hand, 3 of which have to be handed over to other spiritual plant masters in the hall. If you are willing, I can give you the remaining 3 at a low price. Of course I'm willing. Xuan quickly agreed. Thank you, Mr. He, for leaving such an opportunity to me. He stood up and thanked the thin old man. You fought for this yourself. If I didn't see that you can grow high quality spiritual plants stably, I wouldn't give them to you. Manager He looked at Xuan with a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. I have a small question to confirm before I hand it over to you. Is the concentration of spiritual energy and area of the spiritual field you have enough? King Mio Lincture is quite overbearing. No other spiritual plants are allowed to appear around it, and the demand for spiritual energy is also relatively large. No problem. Xuan replied decisively. There is still a small half of the spiritual field in the yard. Planting 3 second grade spiritual plants should not be a problem. The spiritual energy is much richer and purer than the spiritual field at the beginning, and there is a spiritual spring for irrigation. More importantly, I can grasp the status of the spiritual plant at any time, and can make subtle adjustments according to its needs, and satisfy it to the fullest. With all these factors accumulated, planting 3 second grade spiritual plants is naturally a piece of cake. No, it's good. You wait here for a while. I'll be back soon. In the inner courtyard of Baekotang, in a spacious and bright house, 3 spiritual plant masters sat on wooden chairs, moving from time to time, and it can be seen that they were not in a calm mood. Why is Manager He so stubborn? He just keeps holding on to the 3 King Mio spiritual tea seedlings. Fellow Daoists, calm down. There are few people in Baekotang who are more suitable for growing King Mio spiritual tea than us. That's right. We have been cooperating with Baekotang for many years. We are all experienced in cultivating spiritual plants. If not us, who else can we give it to? Manager He is just waiting for a good price and wants to get some benefits. The 3 comforted each other, took a sip of the already cooled spiritual tea in the teacup, and forced themselves to calm down. Not long after, Manager He entered the house. Mr. He exclamation point quote asterisk 3. The 3 of them stood up at the same time and greeted him warmly. The 3 Daoists should go back. I told you a long time ago that there is already a suitable candidate for King Neo spiritual tea. Why are you making things difficult for me? The 3 of them heard this, and their faces froze. After a long time, a dark-skinned middle-aged monk asked Manager He, I wonder which spiritual plant master Manager He is going to give the King Mio spiritual tea to? Could it be old Shen from the West District? Although he is experienced, he is already old and weak, and I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to successfully grow the spiritual tea. No, it's a teenager, less than 20 years old, in the prime of life. Poof. A cultivator next to him couldn't help but spit out the herbal tea that he hadn't swallowed yet. Old He, are you getting old and confused? You gave such an important second grade spiritual plant to a teenager who is less than 20 years old? Wouldn't it be a one-way trip, and 3 second grade spiritual plant seedlings would be lost in vain? Hearing this, the thin old man sneered. You 3 have been cooperating with Baekotang for quite a while. Can you tell me how many years you have been growing spiritual medicines? 20 years. I want 2 years less. 18 years. I'm just an incompetent, but it has been 25 years. The last cultivator said proudly with a smile on his face. Then how many high quality mature spiritual herbs can be obtained when planting the Lingyiang grass, which is the most in demand at Baekotang? I have roughly calculated before that the Lingyiang grass planted is about 30% of ordinary quality, about 50% of good quality, and the remaining 20% of top quality. The results given by the other 2 people are similar to his. What about perfect quality? Manager He asked leisurely. How can perfect quality be that easy? The requirements for spiritual plant masters and spiritual energy in spiritual fields are too high. For casual spiritual plant masters, it is completely a rare opportunity. Really? The thin old man curled his lips. But that young man has been involved in planting spiritual plants for less than 3 years. Among the Lingian grass he brought recently, there are less than 40 Lingian grasses, the lowest of which is of good quality, and there are even 8 of perfect quality. How is it possible? The dark middle-aged cultivator blurted out with a shocked tone. Why is it impossible? I personally checked all the Lingian grasses. Do you mean that there is something wrong with my eyesight? Manager, he frowned slightly and spoke sharply. The dark middle-aged monk stammered a few times, but in the end he did not refute. What manager, he said, was too incredible for him. He himself was a spiritual plant master who had been planting for more than 20 years, and he knew how rare it was to plant spiritual plants of perfect quality. And that young man, with only more than 30 spiritual firefly grasses, actually had 8 plants of perfect quality. How could he accept it for a while? But manager, his words were so sure and full of confidence that he had to believe it. The three looked at each other and saw the doubts and helplessness between each other. I wonder if manager, he can introduce the young spiritual plant master to us. One of them lowered his head and asked. He is now in Bakeo Hall. If you have any questions, you can go and see it yourself. Manager, he saw the attitude of the three people and knew that they had believed most of it, so he had the idea of introducing Xuan to the three people and letting him make more friends with a few spiritual plant masters. After hearing this, the three people hurried to the hall and noticed the handsome young man who was at ease at the edge of the wooden cabinet. Excuse me, are you fellow Daoist Xuan? The dark middle-aged cultivator came to the side of the young man and bowed to ask. Yes, it is me, Xuan said in return. You are indeed a rare talent. It is not surprising that you can grow Lingian grass of perfect quality. The middle-aged cultivator glanced at the wooden cabinet and saw more than 20 Lingian grasses of excellent quality. The last bit of hesitation in his heart disappeared. Thank you for the compliment. It was just a fluke. I still need to ask fellow Daoists how to grow spiritual plants. Xuan replied politely as everyone carried the flowery sedan. The three looked at each other and a bitter smile appeared on their lips. Fellow Daoist Lu, please don't make fun of us. You are a spiritual plant master who grows perfect quality. Why do you need to ask us for advice? One of them hesitated and asked in a low voice. Fellow Daoist Lu, may I ask how you grow the perfect quality firefly grass? How do you grow the perfect quality firefly grass? Xuan was embarrassed and gently rubbed his right thumb and index finger and finally sighed. This is a secret that cannot be passed on. It is really not convenient to tell others. Chapter 45. Do you think I'm really lying down? Seeing Xuan's hand movements, the three of them understood what he meant, looked at each other, and came to the corner of the hall. This young man keeps talking about some secret that is not to be passed on. It's obvious that he wants spirit stones. What do you think? I think we can give it a try. If the method he said is really effective, then we will benefit a lot. If we can really grow perfect quality spirit firefly grass, then we will make a lot of money in terms of reputation and spirit stones. Moreover, since we can cultivate perfect quality spirit firefly grass, it is possible to cultivate perfect quality first grade or even second grade spirit plants. I'm afraid that what he said will not work, and the spirit stones will be wasted in vain. Anyway, he is also a spirit plant master of Bakeo Tang. If we are deceived, we can find him through the hall. The three of them discussed in a low voice for a while and came to Xuan. Dao Lu, the three of us are going to pay 60 spirit stones in exchange for the method of growing perfect quality firefly grass. What do you think? The method cannot be passed on lightly. There are many methods involved in growing perfect spiritual plants. Please understand. Xuan's tone gradually loosened. From the initial secret that cannot be passed on to the current the method cannot be passed on lightly. The meaning revealed was also very clear. You have to pay more. The three returned to the corner and argued in a low voice and finally returned to Xuan. 100 spirit stones, no more. Dao Lu, you and I are both casual spiritual plant masters and you should know that spirit stones are not easy to come by. This is the most spirit stones we can get together. The dark middle-aged cultivator said with a look of regret. Xuan was not interested in understanding the three people's wealth, but he also knew that 100 spirit stones was indeed not a small amount. You know, the price of perfect quality firefly grass is not much higher than other qualities, ranging from dozens of broken spirits. 100 spirit stones. I don't know how many high quality firefly grasses you need to grow to make money. The Dharma is passed on to people who are destined to be together. I can meet 3 Taoist friends here, which shows that we have a deep fate. I will tell you the cultivation method now. The principle is very simple. According to the growth needs of spiritual plants, we should change from the original large-scale spells to fine spells, such as the spirit rain spell, the earth attraction spell, the wood growth spell, etc., and cast them on the spiritual plants at the right time, so that they can grow best. As for the timing of fine spells, you can only rely on your own exploration. So that's it. The 3 people suddenly realized, each spiritual plant will have different needs during its growth process. Even if it is only a slight difference, it will eventually affect the quality when it matures. And fine cultivation of spiritual plants can solve these problems to the greatest extent. Dao, I understand. The 3 people showed gratitude. The method Lu Xuan said was indeed very simple and easy to understand, but not many spiritual plant masters were willing to do so. After all, for most cultivators, planting spiritual plants is just a practice skill, which is no different from refining pills and tools. Cultivation is the most important thing. Sure enough, the 3 people soon realized this problem. If we really do what fellow Daoist Lu said, wouldn't most of our energy be spent on cultivating spiritual plants, leaving us with little time for cultivation? The dark middle-aged cultivator asked in confusion. That's true. Lu Xuan nodded. I know that I have ordinary talents and no hope for cultivation, so I gave up cultivation and spent all my time and energy on cultivating spiritual plants. This is how I achieved a little insignificant results. As for the 3 fellow Daoists, do you want to practice hard and improve your cultivation, or do you want to cultivate more high quality spiritual plants and earn more spiritual stones? That depends on your choice. The 3 of them left one by one with a thoughtful look. Lu Xuan looked at the backs of the 3 people leaving, and with satisfaction, he put the 100 spiritual stones he had obtained into his storage bag. He took these 100 spiritual stones with a clear conscience, without any guilt. The method he told the 3 people was indeed effective. After carefully cultivating spiritual plants, the quality of the spiritual plants would definitely be improved, so that more spiritual stones could be earned. But Lu Xuan concealed the most important point, which was that he could control and understand the real-time status of the spiritual plants, and adjust them at any time according to their needs. The 3 of them could not do this, so they could only rely on themselves to explore a little bit. It was estimated that, if they could not cultivate perfectly, it would be difficult to get spiritual plants of perfect quality. Moreover, after choosing to cultivate spiritual plants in a refined way, they basically gave up cultivation. They were not like Lu Xuan, who had the reward of white light balls, and could get various treasures in cultivation. Do you think I'm really lying down? Lu Xuan smiled secretly. In fact, I'm rolling you to death. You kid is not only good at planting spiritual plants, but also good at earning spiritual stones. The thin old man came to Lu Xuan at some point, and said with a chuckle, isn't that right? Lu Xuan smiled proudly. 3 sentences made 3 spiritual plant masters spend 100 spiritual stones for me. Is this level okay? It's good to earn 100 spiritual stones, but if your unique method is spread out, it will be more than worth it. Manager He Stone was a little dissatisfied, as if he was blaming Lu Xuan for leaking the method of planting perfect quality spiritual plants for that little bit of profit. Don't worry, Manager He, it's not that simple. There are methods, but whether you can do it is another matter. Otherwise, with so many spiritual plant masters, how could no one find that careful cultivation can improve the quality of spiritual plants? But how many spiritual plant masters can grow perfect quality plants? Lu Xuan said lightly. The thin old man nodded, and then he was slightly relieved. Come here and take the 3 King Miolingcha seedlings away. Lu Xuan followed the old man, and came to a wing room. The room was filled with fragrance. On a wooden rack in the middle were 3 flower pots with strange patterns. In the flower pots, there were 3 tea tree seedlings. The tea tree seedlings were about 5 inches tall. Although they were seedlings, their branches were intertwined and strong, with a strange sense of contrast. On the branches, there were 3 or 5 tender green tea leaves, trembling slightly, weak and fragile, but you could feel a strong vitality from them. These are the 3 second-grade King Neo spiritual tea seedlings. It's not an on-grade spiritual plant like Lingying KO. It's much more expensive. You must cultivate it well and can't fail. Manager, he told Lu Xuan earnestly. Lu Xuan nodded heavily. How many spiritual stones do you need for 3 King Neo spiritual tea seedlings? On the market, King Neo spiritual tea seedlings are generally 30 spiritual stones each, and because the seedlings are rare and the tea is precious, they are usually in short supply. You have an agreement with Baekeo Tang, so you can get them at a low price. 3 tea seedlings, you can take them away for 60 spiritual stones. The price was discounted by more than 30%. Lu Xuan was even more fortunate that he had established such a relatively free cooperation model with Baekeo Tang. At the same time, he was even more grateful to the thin old man who brought him in. I'm going to make up for yesterday's update. I'm weekly asking for monthly tickets, recommendations, and most importantly, follow-up reading. I'll try my best to update 3 times on Tuesday. Please be sure to read to the last page of the latest chapter. Thank you very much. ORZ. Chapter 46 6-Winged Concentric Insect, seeking follow-up reading. Come down. Lu Xuan brought 3 King Miaolingcha seedlings back to the yard and said to the young cloud stepping lynx that had been lying on his shoulder. The cloud stepping lynx looked at Lu Xuan coldly with its green eyes, gently landed on the ground, and walked straight to the spiritual spring pool. Lu Xuan came to a corner of the spiritual field, divided out a large piece of blank spiritual soil, and performed the earth drawing technique. 3 small pits appeared in the spiritual field, and 3 King Miaolingcha seedlings were gently placed in the pits. After planting the King Miaolingcha, his mind was focused on the small tea seedlings. The purest water can grow the best tea. Use spiritual spring water to water the tea seedlings for better results. King Miaolingcha has a pure and spiritual aura between its branches and leaves. Evil spirits and filthy things must not stay near the tea seedlings for a long time, otherwise it will affect the normal growth of the tea seedlings. A thought flashed through Lu Xuan's mind, and he instantly understood the needs of the King Miaolingcha seedlings and the precautions. It's not difficult to water with spiritual spring water. There happens to be a pool of spiritual spring water in the yard, and a little spiritual spring water keeps seeping out from the ground veins, which is more than enough to nourish 3 young King Mio spiritual tea seedlings. As for evil spirits and filthy things, I, Lu Xuan, am pure and innocent, and I'm upright, so I naturally can't be contaminated by those things. Well, in the future, I have to try to let Wang Shan and his wife enter the yard as little as possible to avoid contaminating my spiritual tea. He performed a round of spiritual rain magic to fully nourish the King Mio spiritual tea seedlings, and then came to the other side of the spiritual field. In the corner of the spiritual field, there was a fog ball half a meter long and wide. The fog was hazy and difficult to see clearly, and even the spiritual consciousness felt a little stagnant. The 3rd grade Xuan Luo fruit seemed to turn into smoke and merge with the light mist. Oh, you are playing hide and seek with me. Lu Xuan's mind was concentrated in the mist, and he kept groping, and soon learned the location of the Xuan Luo fruit. A spiritual rain spell was cast, and the light mist churned slightly, then condensed, revealing the seedlings of the phantom smoke Luo fruit. After nourishing the phantom smoke Luo fruit, Lu Xuan inspected the spiritual field again, confirming that each spiritual plant was growing well, and then returned to the house. After returning to the house, he sat at the table and counted the spiritual stones in his hand. The 22 spiritual fireflies brought over this time exchanged for a total of 77 spiritual stones, and the 3 King Mio spiritual tea seedlings cost 60 spiritual stones. Fortunately, 3 spiritual plant masters took the initiative to offer 100 spiritual stones, so a total of nearly 120 spiritual stones were earned. Including what he had in his hand, his net worth was more than 200 spiritual stones. More than 200 spiritual stones, plus the spiritual fireflies entering a rapid maturity period. The red cloud pine is about to mature, and my net worth is about to usher in a wave of surges. Lu Xuan looked at the small pile of spiritual stones on the table, overflowing with spiritual energy, and thought happily, "Brother Lu, are you there?" Your sister-in-law has prepared a sumptuous meal. Why don't you come over and have a drink with me? Wang Shan's voice came from outside the yard. Lu Xuan didn't know if it was an illusion, but his voice sounded a little excited. His hair stood on end. The silver blade quietly split into dozens of silver white fragments, and a second grade sword energy talisman slid into his palm. Brother Wang, I'm a little tired from cultivating spiritual plants today, and I have a headache, so I won't come. I'll come to taste my sister-in-law's cooking next time. He made up an excuse to deal with Wang Shan. Well, you have a good rest. Wang Shan left on his own after hearing what Lu Xuan said. Wang's house. In the middle of the hall was a mahogany table with more than 10 dishes on it, including rare ingredients such as monster meat. Wang Shan's concubine lowered her head and sat quietly at the table. Lu Xuan is a little uncomfortable and can't come over, so let's eat together. Well, listen to my husband. Wang replied softly and got up to serve Wang Shan rice. Thank you, my lady. Wang Shan looked at the pair of snow-white soft lips reaching out to him, feeling satisfied. When he bought this concubine on the black market, he originally just wanted to kill some lonely time, but he didn't expect that the effect would be far beyond his initial expectation. After buying this concubine home, she was gentle and interesting, which made Wang Shan feel extremely happy and addicted to her. Even the brothels he always loved to go to rarely went there recently. More importantly, after a period of time, he vaguely felt that he was about to break through to the 6th level of key training. This made him love this concubine even more, and he asked for her day and night, and he was happy and didn't want to leave. My lady, thank you for your hard work. He gently stroked the woman's soft and white little hand and said gently, my husband can't bear to let me suffer, right? Wang raised her head. Her eyes were shining, and there was a mole under the corner of her eye that was very charming. That's for sure. I can't wait to love you. How can I bear to let you suffer? What if I get pregnant in the future? I heard that pregnancy will be very painful and tormenting. Wang asked pitifully. While Wang Shan was hesitating, Wang Shi pulled out her hand without leaving any trace, and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. How about, husband, you give birth to a child for me? Wang Shan was about to refuse, but suddenly he felt a strange desire in his stomach, as if something was growing inside. Okay. This desire was so strong that it overwhelmed his inner thoughts and spiritual consciousness, and he agreed subconsciously. As soon as he finished speaking, his abdomen made a gurgling sound, and his stomach continued to bulge at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the flesh and blood on his limbs, chest, and back continued to shrink. After a while, his abdomen had swelled into a big ball. Wang Shan's eyes were sunken, revealing a hint of madness. The rest of his body had become extremely shriveled, with only a piece of skin hanging on the bones. My lord, give birth to a child for me. Wang Shi's face flushed, and she looked at Wang Shan's huge belly in fascination. At the same time, when Wang Shan's body just began to change, the trunk of a spiritual tree in the Wang family yard quietly cracked, and a nearly transparent insect shot out from the crack. The insect was about 2 inches long, and had 6 wings. Each pair of wings was as thin as a cicada's wing, with faint patterns on it. At this time, the patterns on the wings were turning black with the changes in Wang Shan, causing the 6-winged insect to emit a slight hissing sound of anxiety. More than 10 miles away in the law enforcement hall, Ling Peng, who was at a high level of key training, looked at the 6-winged insect in front of him, who was also uneasy, and a trace of heaviness appeared on his face. It finally appeared. The strange insect in front of him was called the 6-winged concentric insect. It was extremely hidden. If it sensed the presence of evil spirits nearby, it would mutate. Another insect within a certain distance could sense the other's abnormality at the same time and react violently. The stronger the evil spirit, the greater the reaction. After accidentally learning that Wang Shan might be occupied by evil spirits, he secretly investigated, but found nothing. He had to leave a 6-winged concentric insect in the Wang family yard to monitor the situation of the Wang family at any time. After waiting for a few days, the evil spirit finally showed up. Brother, I have to trouble you to go with me. Judging from the reaction of this insect, I'm afraid I'm not absolutely sure to get rid of it. He turned his head and looked at a young monk next to him. There was a lightning scar in the middle of his forehead, and occasionally you could see the flash of lightning. Chapter 47 Thunder, Seeking Follow-Up Reading. The young monk was named Lei Yin, and he was at the 9th level of key training, only a hair's breadth away from key training perfection. He was good at thunder magic. He was the person with the highest level of cultivation in the law enforcement hall. He killed countless evil spirits on weekdays and was notorious. His eyes were golden and full of power. Looking at the 6-winged concentric insect struggling in Ling Peng's hand, he said coldly, "The evil demon dared to reach out to the monks of our law enforcement hall. I don't care whether he did it intentionally or not. I must make him pay a heavy price. Let's go." Before he finished speaking, Lei Yin stepped on a flying sword and shot out, followed by Ling Peng. Wang's house. In the hall, Wang Shan's stomach had swelled into a big ball, and the big ball expanded and contracted like a beating heart. And he became like a mummy, and the skin that was drooping was constantly cracking, revealing the white bones inside. "Ah, I'm about to give birth." Wang looked at the beating big ball, revealing a look of maternal brilliance, and held her arms with both hands, trying to catch the baby that was about to burst out of her abdomen. Where did this evil spirit come from? How dare you run wild in Linyang Market? Die. Before he finished speaking, a huge fire dragon 2 or 3 feet long came flying at high speed, rushing towards the big bull in Wang Shan's abdomen. Wow. A baby cried in Wang Shan's abdomen. The cry was filled with infinite resentment, and a grey-black spiritual energy wall condensed instantly, blocking the fire dragon that was rushing at high speed for the big bull. The fire dragon collided with the grey-black wall, and instantly turned into countless flames, falling on the furniture in the house, burning fiercely. Ling Peng flew over the house, through the big hole opened by the fire dragon, and coldly stared at the 2 people in the house, who were in a very strange state. He looked at the big bull that was beating faster and faster, and the woman with a hurried expression, knowing that he could not delay, and snorted coldly. A small fire lotus flew out of his body. The fire lotus was 3 colors. The rhizome was dark red with countless fine lines. The lotus leaf was fiery red. There were strands of magma flowing in the leaves, and the lotus was light red crystal clear like jade. The 3-colored fire lotus spun and danced, growing faster in the wind, and quickly grew larger, penetrating the grey-black spiritual wall directly, and was about to land on the big bull in Wang Shan's abdomen. The big bull seemed to feel the threat of the 3-colored fire lotus, and a huge crack quickly appeared, and 2 black thin arms lay on both sides of the crack. The things inside could not wait for normal hatching, and had to be released in advance. The woman next to her also had a huge crack in her abdomen, which was empty inside, with only strong resentment. The baby's arm lay on the edge of the crack, and then a more resentful cry sounded, and grey-black baby palms appeared on the 3-colored fire lotus, and the magma flowing on the lotus leaves suddenly slowed down. Still struggling in vain. Die. A cold voice sounded. The sky above the Wang family suddenly became white, and the surrounding monks who were watching here instantly lost any vision. A rumble sounded, thunder fell, and the entire Wang family turned into a sea of thunder and lightning. After the situation calmed down, the Wang family had become a black and grey area. The big bull in Wang Shan's abdomen and the Wang family was mashed into pieces under the thunder. The 2 people's spiritual consciousness swept through the courtyard in the surroundings, and after confirming that there was no abnormality, they landed. Junior Brotherling, send someone to check the surroundings again later, to prevent any evil spirits from being missed. The monks of the law enforcement hall who are checking must be loyal to their duties and must not affect the normal lives of the monks around them, nor must they get away with it and be too casual. Yes, Senior Brother Lei, I will definitely catch them myself and ensure that no evil spirits will be let go. Ling Peng nodded heavily. Not far away, Lu Xuan looked at the Wang family courtyard with a serious expression. He noticed the moment the thunder appeared, but he didn't look directly at it, so his eyes were normal. The monk of the law enforcement hall released such a powerful spell, but it did not affect Lu Xuan's courtyard, which shows his ability to control spiritual power. Lu Xuan was ready, with the talisman and magic weapon in his hand beside him. Fortunately, the cultivators who came to deal with the evil spirit were very strong, and no remaining evil spirits ran out and entered Lu Xuan's yard. It's better to report. Lu Xuan sighed. He also heard the cry of the baby. Even though he was not the main target of the cry, he couldn't help but feel dizzy and slow. If he faced it head on, Xuan really couldn't guarantee that he could easily solve the evil spirit. Fortunately, he had previously used the reporting method to use the force to fight the force, and lured out 2 high-level key training cultivators from the law enforcement hall to successfully solve Xuan, who was invaded and contaminated by the evil spirit. When I reported it, in addition to explaining Xuan's abnormality, I also said that Tan Xiaodong might deliberately cover up for him. Now that Xuan has been confirmed to have been invaded by the evil spirit, Tan Xiaodong will have a hard time defending himself. Even if it is finally proved that he has nothing to do with the evil spirit, he is still inevitably negligent in his duties. Xuan sat at the table, motionless. Xuan and the evil spirit had just been dealt with not long ago, and it was a sensitive period. Naturally, as a neighbor, he would receive a lot of attention, so it was better not to do anything for the time being, and just stay at home. Sure enough, before half an hour had passed, 3 mid-level key training monks came to the door to question him. "Excuse me, fellow Taoist. The law enforcement hall found a powerful evil spirit nearby tonight. After dealing with it, in order to prevent it from sneaking into the homes of the surrounding monks and to ensure the safety of all the monks, we had to conduct a detailed inspection. Please forgive me, fellow Taoist," the leader said to Xuan with a smile. 3 mid-level key training monks, what a big scene. Xuan sighed secretly and replied, "It's okay, fellow Taoist, you can rest assured to check. I have no objection. Thank you for your cooperation, fellow Taoist." The leading monk arched his hands to Xuan and took out a white jade Buddha statue from the storage bag. The Buddha statue was about 3 inches tall, twisting his fingers and smiling, with a layer of hazy spiritual light on the outside. The monk circulated the spiritual energy in his body, pinched the seal and cast a spell, and a stream of spiritual power hit the surface of the Buddha statue. Suddenly, the layer of hazy spiritual light suddenly increased, like ripples, sweeping across Xuan's body in the courtyard where he was. When the faint spiritual light swept over, Xuan only felt that he became clean and clear in an instant. His heart was like a mirror, not stained with dust. After the spiritual light swept across the entire courtyard, it shrank back into the Buddha statue. The Buddha statue was still shining with hazy spiritual light, without any abnormality. "Okay, I didn't find anything abnormal. Sorry to bother you, fellow Taoist." The leading monk put away the white jade Buddha statue and took the other 2 to another house. "Is it alright?" Xuan was puzzled. He had been prepared for the possibility that the spiritual plants in the spiritual field would be exposed. Unexpectedly, the inspection method of the monks of the law enforcement hall was so simple. "So, last time, Tan Xiaodong did want to extort money from me. Seeing that I was just a 3rd level key training spirit plant master, he wanted to enter the house and search it carefully under the guise of inspection. But he probably didn't expect what kind of price he would pay for that little spirit stone." Xuan smiled and went back to the house. Chapter 46 is under review. I fainted. Chapter 48 When the pine nuts ripen. In the center of Lanyang Fang, in the dim room, 7 or 8 babies were crawling around. The babies were abnormally dark blue, with black gas seeping out of their bodies from time to time. They had small limbs, sharp teeth, and bulging pupils, giving people a ferocious feeling. They were agile and swift, which was completely inconsistent with their bodies. Occasionally, when they bumped into each other, they would bite each other fiercely, and from time to time, they would make resentful cries when they bit the painful parts, which made people dizzy. In the corner of the room, 2 beautiful girls sat quietly, without saying a word, with a smile on their faces, and their expressions revealed a maternal radiance. The abdomens of the 2 people were bulging high, like a big ball. One of them had a huge crack in her belly, and a bulging grey-white eyeball stared at the outside world through the crack, as if it would crawl out of her belly at any time. Who killed one of my beloved evil babies? On the big bed made of ice, a monk sat up straight, surrounded by a strong resentment. From time to time, a blurred face flew out of the resentment, wailing silently in pain. The 7 or 8 babies who were fighting and biting each other in the room suddenly became quiet as cicadas, as if they were very afraid of this person. The two girls in the corner still kept smiling, motionless, and the grey-white eyeballs in the cracks of their abdomen slowly retreated into the depths. This way, my chances of refining the evil infant pill will be reduced by 1 point. Damn it. The resentment in the monk continued to rise, just like the anger in his heart. He has been in the perfect stage of key training for a long time, and has tried to break through the foundation twice, but both ended in failure. By chance, he got an evil method of refining the evil infant pill from a secret realm. After taking the refined pill, the probability of breaking through the foundation will increase by 10% or 20%. According to the records of the evil method, he collected hundreds of resentful souls, condensed them into evil infant fetuses, and then found more than 10 girls, controlled them with secret methods, and injected the evil infant fetuses into the girls' bodies. Then he sold them in various ways. After the target monk bought them, when the two were happy, the evil infant fetuses would silently merge into each other's bodies. Since the evil infant itself is a kind of evil treasure, during the fusion process, it will enhance the spiritual energy in the monk's body, making him have the illusion that his cultivation has increased sharply, and he will pay more attention to dual cultivation. When the evil infant and the monk are completely integrated, when the time is right, it will grab all the spiritual power, blood, and flesh essence in the monk's body and turn it into an evil infant. After the evil infant sucks the monk into a mummy, it will break out of the body and return to the girl's body, using her body to cover up the evil breath and sneak back to his place of residence. The whole process is extremely secretive. When the evil infant is integrated into the monk's body, ordinary evil removing talismans and magic tools are difficult to detect the monk's abnormality. Only in the short period of time when it breaks out of the body, a little breath will be revealed. However, as long as you don't pay attention all the time, the abnormality of that short period of time will usually not be noticed. But with such caution, there is still an evil infant who was killed, which makes him less confident in condensing the evil infant pill, and it is naturally more difficult to break through to the foundation building stage. For him, this was nothing short of a blood feud. It seems that I have to find a few more young female key training cultivators, parasitize the evil infants in their bodies, and put them on the black market, waiting for cultivators to buy them. But if one evil infant is discovered, it may not be as smooth as the first time. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but get angry, and the resentment he suffered almost turned into substance, scaring the 7 or 8 evil infants next to him so much that they dared not move. In the yard, without the threat of the evil spirit on Xuan, Xuan felt much more relaxed physically and mentally, and devoted himself to cultivating the many spiritual plants in the spiritual field. After the inexplicable evil spirit appeared, the law enforcement hall strictly supervised the area where he lived, conducted inspections from time to time, and was extremely careful about the entry and exit of cultivators in the area. However, this did not have much impact on Xuan. Anyway, he basically stayed in the yard, cultivating spiritual plants, and occasionally teasing the stepping cloudlings and the red-bearded carp. He paid a little attention to the monks from the law enforcement hall who came to inspect. Among the more than 10 mid-level key training monks who appeared, there was no figure of Tanzaidan. Xuan deduced that it was very likely that the information attached to the last report played a role, causing him to be implicated. Thinking of this, his mood became even better, and he felt quite contented when planting the spiritual field. In the early morning, the light mist had not yet dissipated. The 3-foot-tall grass puppet walked out of the mist, patrolling the spiritual field all night without sleep, and the dry grey grass on its body was soaked by the mist. Really my good employee. Xuan sighed leisurely, while holding a white jade slender-necked bottle, and then entered the spiritual field, and came to the edge of the spiritual spring. The 3 fat red-bearded carp saw his familiar figure and thought they could eat the alien insects, so they flicked their tails and swam over. 6 slender red whiskers dragged beside them, like 6 red ribbons, rippling in the spiritual spring pool. Xuan sprinkled a handful of spiritual rice and ignored it, and filled half a bottle of spiritual spring water with a white jade slender-necked bottle. A black shadow flashed by. The young cloud stepping lynx leaped up. Its white cloud-like feet stepped on the water surface, and took advantage of the situation to grab the long whiskers of a red-bearded carp, and pulled it out of the water. The young animal passed through the water surface, leaving only the red-bearded carp tumbling in the air, and fell into the spiritual spring pool while jumping randomly, stirring up layers of ripples. The other two red-bearded carps were surprised, and quickly dived to the bottom of the spiritual spring pool. Their movements were very large, making the ripples on the water surface more intense and obvious. Under the impact of the waves, the white and tender lotus leaves of the pure snow lotus in the center of the spiritual spring pool swayed gently, looking fragile. You guy, you are too dishonest. It's okay to catch fish, but you also prevent my pure snow lotus from growing well. I will deduct a piece of porcupine jerky from you at noon. Seeing this, Xuan, who was standing by, reached out and patted the pointed ears of the cloud-stepping lynx young animal, threateningly. Hearing that the food was deducted, the young animal, who had always maintained a cold appearance, couldn't help but growl. It would have been fine if he didn't make a sound. Once he made a sound, Xuan heard the awkward sound of his clamp, and became more determined to make meat jerky. Then, he took the spiritual spring water to the 3 King Mio spiritual tea plants. The spiritual power controlled the spring water, which turned into a stream, and flowed into the tea tree seedlings. After watering the King Mio spiritual tea seedlings, he patrolled the spiritual field again. He separated the 20 ruthless plants that tried to entangle with each other. As the blood jade ginseng grew rapidly, their speed and willingness to get close to each other also increased a lot. This time, if Xuan hadn't stopped them, I'm afraid that more than 10 blood jade ginsengs would have been mixed together. It almost caused a large-scale group movement. After separating the blood jade ginseng, he gave the sword grass 2 Gengjin sword tactics, allowing it to absorb the sharp sword intent of the sword energy. The dark marrow Ganoderma under the wooden shed adjusted the position of the rotten spiritual wood so that it could better absorb the rotten spiritual power in it. He caught the phantom smoke fruit hidden in the thick white fog. After a few days, the range of the fog around it expanded a little. Finally, he came to the red cloud pine that was about to mature, and focused his attention on the branches and leaves. Hey, there is actually a mature pine nut? Xuan said in surprise as the thought flashed through his mind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Fire Sword. In the dense and luxuriant slender fiery red pine leaves, 5 pine nuts were half hidden, one of which was already ripe. The red pine cone skin on the outside was like fish scales, from bottom to top, layer by layer, encircling the pine nut kernel inside. There were not many pine nuts in the center, more than 20, the size of a fingertip, like pomegranate kernels. They were light red, crystal clear, and fragrant, making people salivate. Xuan focused his mind on the ripe red cloud pine nuts, and immediately got detailed information about it. Red cloud pine nuts come from the first grade spiritual plant red cloud pine, which contains rich spiritual power. After practicing key, low level and intermediate level cultivators can slightly improve their cultivation. Its taste is sweet and refreshing, and it is continuous, and is very popular among many female cultivators. Xuan peeled off the ripe red cloud pine nut, and put it into a special container with relevant runes drawn on it to ensure the freshness of the pine nuts to the greatest extent. When peeling the pine nuts, he also learned that the pine nuts he picked were of good quality. A white light ball naturally appeared in the part of the red cloud pine that he picked, flickering slightly. Xuan was excited. This was the first mature first grade spiritual plant he had harvested. Before, both the firefly grass and the eclipse moon fruit were spiritual plants of no grade, and their value was much lower than that of the red cloud pine. Harvest a red cloud pine nut, and obtain the second grade flying sword Lihuo sword. The white light bowl turned into countless light points, and poured into Xuan's body. Then, a thought flashed through his mind. A flying sword quietly appeared in his hand. The flying sword was about 3 feet long. The sword body was light and fiery red, and there were dark red veins on the blade. When it shook, a tiny flame flew out of the blade. Second grade flying sword. Xuan couldn't help but exclaimed. This was the first second grade magic weapon he got in his cultivation career. Before he obtained the magical power of the spiritual field, he wanted to buy a sword energy talisman, but he had to save up for a long time before he could buy it. Now, there are not only treasures such as the silver blade and the thunder fire bead, there are also a large number of talismans. The previously difficult to obtain sword energy talismans and the evil removing talismans have been piled up in a ball, and even the second grade sword energy talismans have already been obtained. Now, he has obtained another second grade magic weapon, the fire separation sword. Plant a spiritual field, and get many opportunities. I don't like to explore secret realms, I don't like to fight for treasures, I just like to cultivate some flowers and plants. The appearance of the second grade fire separation sword made Lu Xuan more excited about the remaining 4 red cloud pine nuts, and at the same time, it also made him more determined to quietly farm. He put the fire separation sword into the storage bag, and came to the area where the firefly grass was. There were only 65 of the 100 firefly grasses left, and they had entered the rapid maturity stage. The slender leaves were dotted with fluorescent lights, which were very eye-catching even in the daytime. Lu Xuan picked 14 mature firefly grasses at one time. Among them, there were 4 good quality plants, 7 superior quality plants, and the remaining 3 were perfect quality, and none of them were ordinary quality. He put the 14 mature firefly grasses in a white jade box to prevent them from losing their vitality. Looking at the spiritual field, 14 white light balls quietly came. Harvest 1 firefly grass, gain 6 months of cultivation. Asterisk 2 harvest 1 firefly grass, gain 9 months of cultivation. Harvest 1 firefly grass, gain 1 year of cultivation. 4 of the white light balls brought cultivation rewards, accumulating 3 years of cultivation. Thoughts flashed through his mind, and waves of strong spiritual power appeared in Lu Xuan's body. It surged wildly in his dantian and meridians. He clenched his teeth, and tried his best to operate the exercises. After a while, the spiritual power in his body gradually calmed down. After many days of hard training, plus the little bit of cultivation rewards brought by this time and before, Lu Xuan finally broke through to the 6th level of key training. Heaven rewards hard work, it's worth it for me to take a break from my busy schedule. In addition to planting the spiritual field, I seize every moment of rest to practice hard. I can achieve such an achievement today, which is inseparable from my hard work and diligence. Lu Xuan sighed secretly. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, get a first grade sword key talisman point quote asterisk 3. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, get a first grade exorcism talisman point quote asterisk 2. 5 of the white light balls brought first grade talismans as rewards, which increased the talisman inventory in Lu Xuan's storage bag. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, get a first grade PO and pill point quote asterisk 3. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, get a first grade PO and pill recipe. Harvest 1 Lingyiang grass, get a drop of grass spirit essence liquid. The remaining 5 white light balls produced 3 PO and pills, and the other 2, probably because of the perfect quality of Lingyiang grass, one produced a pill recipe, and the other produced a treasure grass spirit essence liquid. Lu Xuan absorbed the PO and pill recipe, and suddenly, his mind had a deeper understanding of refining PO and pills. Material processing, dosage, refining temperature, pill extraction time, etc. were all improved a lot. Although he has not yet had any actual combat experience in refining PO and AN, he is already a real master of theory. A drop of emerald green semi-solidified liquid appeared in Lu Xuan's hand. It was the grass spiritual essence liquid, which contained a lot of plant essence. Lu Xuan called the grass puppet over and stuffed the emerald green liquid into the grey grass tumor on its head. Not long after it was stuffed in, the grey grass tumor turned emerald green at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if an old tree sprouted new buds, glowing with rich vitality. Eat and drink enough, so you will have more strength to guard the spiritual field. Lu Xuan looked at the grass puppet with a green head, and said with a smile, Dao Aolu, Dao Aolu, are you there? A familiar voice came from outside the house. Lu Xuan recalled it briefly and quickly recognized that it was a nearby cultivator named Wu. He was quite old and loved things in the cup. He once came to the yard to ask Lu Xuan if he had planted spiritual plants suitable for brewing wine. Fellow Daoist Wu, I'm here. What's up? Nothing serious. I'm just happy that those lackeys from the law enforcement all have finally left. I want to have a drink with someone, so I thought of you, little friend Lu. Lu Xuan opened the courtyard door and said to the cultivator surnamed Wu with a smile, "Okay, I'll pack up and come have a drink with you, fellow Daoist Wu." The old man surnamed Wu nodded and left. Lu Xuan returned to the house and hid the Thunderfire Pearl and the Sword Key 10,000 talismans in his clothes to prevent any accidents. The old man surnamed Wu's cultivation level was at the 4th level of key training. If he had any bad intentions towards him, even if he concealed something, Lu Xuan was confident that he had many talismans and magic tools in his hands, which would be enough to deal with it. After thinking for a while, he called the cloud-stepping lynx over again. The young lynx had a blank expression on its face, staring with a pair of green eyes, but in fact it jumped onto Lu Xuan's shoulders with joy in its heart, and 4 white clouds tightly clung to Lu Xuan's robes. Lu Xuan was completely relieved. With the magical eyes of the cloud-stepping lynx, the evil spirits, that were difficult for ordinary cultivators to detect, could not hide anywhere, and Lu Xuan's safety was further guaranteed. He took the lynx cub, opened the formation, and walked towards the residence of the cultivator surnamed Wu. It just so happened that he also had something to ask the old man surnamed Wu. It was already difficult to see unknown spiritual seeds in the casual cultivator market. Although there were many varieties of spiritual seeds in those large shops, most of them were expensive and not of high grade. Most of them were of the first grade or no grade, which could not satisfy Lu Xuan, whose vision was getting higher and higher. He had the idea of going to the mysterious black market in the market to take a look and at the same time sell some things in his hands. The old man surnamed Wu had a good cultivation base and had been in the market for a long time. He must have a lot of knowledge about the black market. Chapter 50 Kite. Come on, fellow Daoist Lu, have a taste of this aged wine that I have kept for nearly 10 years. At the home of the cultivator surnamed Wu, the two were drinking to their heart's content. Lu Xuan shook the silver wine cup in his hand, and the golden wine in the cup rose and fell with his movements, and a mellow and heavy wine smell escaped. I really didn't expect that Wang Shan, a patrol guard of the law enforcement hall, was actually contaminated by evil spirits. Fortunately, it was discovered early and did not affect us neighbors. The cultivator surnamed Wu put down the wine cup and thought of the possible consequences and couldn't help but feel scared. Yes, if the evil spirits were not discovered and eliminated in time, it would be difficult for those of us who live nearby to ensure our own safety. Lu Xuan echoed. Those useless people from the law enforcement hall have been guarding this area for a while, and it is inconvenient for them to go out and do anything. Don't you see, they can't even protect their own people, and are invaded by evil spirits. What's the point of coming to control us? It's better to thoroughly investigate the inside. Maybe we can find a few more. The old man surnamed Wu was obviously a little drunk, and his eyes were blurred. Dao Lu, why don't you plant those spiritual plants suitable for brewing spiritual wine? If you do, I'll buy as many as you can. As he was talking, the cultivator surnamed Wu turned the topic to Lu Xuan. I've been thinking about it recently, but the spiritual field in the courtyard is too small. There is no extra space to plant other spiritual plants, and I don't have the energy to cultivate other spiritual plants for the time being. If you have that plan, I will definitely come to you for cooperation. The two continued to drink. By the way, Dao Wu, do you know the black market in Liang Market? Lu Xuan asked the old man. Black market? Why, do you want to go in? I have this idea, but I have never been in it before, so I don't know much about it. Dao Wu, you have superb cultivation, and have been in the market for a long time, so I want to ask you about the relevant situation. Lu Xuan smiled. I have indeed been in it several times. The most recent time was about 2 years ago. The old man sobered up a little, and showed a look of reminiscence. The black market is located in the center of the city. Rumor has it that it is managed by several underground forces in the city, but I guess there is the shadow of one or several big families in the city behind it. The city was originally built on an abandoned secret realm. The black market is located in a natural maze. You can only enter it after purchasing a guiding talisman with several spirit stones. It's called the black market, so it is very different from the casual cultivator market in those big shops. Those who appear there are generally not allowed to see the light. The cultivators who enter will usually hide their faces or cultivation. The same is true for the goods inside. There will be many treasures that are difficult to see in the market and shops. Their origins are unknown. There are treasures that are stolen from people and cannot be sold normally. There are also various weird and strange materials, and there is no shortage of evil things. Lu Xuan nodded from time to time. Then can ordinary casual cultivators be guaranteed safety when they enter the black market? It is definitely safe inside. There are powerful cultivators guarding it. It is rare to hear of anyone causing trouble inside. As for the outside, it is not under the jurisdiction of the black market. Among the cultivators entering and leaving the black market, there are many vicious and evil people, or evil cultivators who practice evil techniques, so the safety is much lower than inside. Occasionally, there will be incidents such as murder and robbery. Under normal circumstances, there is no problem. After all, the black market is in the center of the town. Anyway, I have been there more than once, when I was in the low level of key training, and I didn't encounter any unexpected situations. If you really want to enter, you can be cautious. If you are really scared, you can enter with a familiar cultivator. I have learned a lot. Thank you, Brother Wu, for telling me this important information. The old man surnamed Wu waved his hand. These are nothing. You can get them by asking outside. The two of them had an average relationship, and he did not ask Lu Xuan what the purpose of entering the black market was. Lu Xuan stayed for a while, and then took the young cloud stepping lynx that had been quietly on his shoulder back to his home. He pondered for a moment, and decided to go to the black market. According to what the old man surnamed Wu said, there would be many strange things on the black market, so the possibility of finding unknown spiritual seeds would be greater than in the market for casual cultivators. Moreover, it was generally safe to go in and out of the black market. Lu Xuan felt that, as long as he did not expose his property and did not cause trouble, he would be able to get out of it safely. Moreover, he had full confidence in his current strength. The cultivation of the 6th level of key training, the Zhengjin sword art, that was close to the master level, the 1st grade special magic weapon silver blade, 2 2nd grade sword Xuan Qi and talismans, the 2nd grade flying sword Lihuo sword, the 1st grade treasure thunder fire pearl, and many talismans. Even if he faced a high level key training cultivator, Lu Xuan had a good chance of killing him. On the second day, Lu Xuan inspected the spiritual field, kept all the spiritual plants in the best condition, and went to the black market according to the location provided by the cultivator surnamed Wu. Because the young cloud stepping lynx was too obvious and there was no suitable means to cover it up, Lu Xuan left it at home. After learning that he could not follow Lu Xuan out, the cloud stepping lynx stared at Lu Xuan with a pair of green eyes. Lu Xuan focused his mind on its body and felt that the young animal seemed to be afraid that he would abandon it, and his heart was full of helplessness and fear. This almost made Lu Xuan soft-hearted, but in the end, considering that his true identity might be exposed, he finally comforted the cloud stepping lynx for a while, left a pile of dried meat strips for the cloud stepping lynx, and went alone. About half an hour later, Lu Xuan came to the outside of the black market. Although the black market is close to the center of the town, it is quite desolate around it. There are no courtyards or houses. There are only a few monks on the road, who are in a hurry and wary of each other. The entire black market is shrouded in a large mass of thick black fog. The spiritual consciousness probed into the black fog, as if it was blocked by something, and it was difficult to move. Lu Xuan wore a simple mask on his face, and came to the monk guarding the entrance to the black market. Along the way, he saw that almost all the monks were dressed like him. Most of them wore masks or cloths on their faces, a few used special magic tools to cover their faces, and a few did not care much, and showed their true faces to others. But Lu Xuan did not know whether it was his true face. He observed the movements of the monks in front of him, and handed 3 spirit stones to a monk, who was surrounded by black mist at the entrance. Then, he got a guide talisman with black runes drawn on it, and there was a slightly moving black arrow on it. Entering the black mist, the front was hazy, and the black arrow flashed, constantly adjusting the direction of the arrow slightly, leading Lu Xuan forward in the black mist. After a while, Lu Xuan felt refreshed, passed through the black mist, and came to the black market. The black market was more spacious than he imagined. There were 1 or 200 monks in sight. The scene was relatively quiet, with only slight discussions. The sky above the black market seemed to be covered by a thick black cloud. In the sky, there were more than a dozen black kites flying slowly. No one knew what the kite was made of. At first glance, it looked like a monster skin floating in the sky. When it flew over Lu Xuan's head, he could feel an evil thought sweeping through his body, causing Lu Xuan's skin to be covered with goosebumps. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.